Florida Keys, another hurricane force wind gusts of 83 miles per hour. And this one is also from Key West. Thank you so much. Right now, let's talk about those gusts because they're also kicking and in bracket. Florida. Now, as far in terms of impacts are concerned, just because the system moves a bit more towards the west, it doesn't mean that we won't be feeling the effects of Irma, because hurricane force winds of a Cat 1, Cat 2 range will be possible around interior Broward and far southern Miami-Dade, but tropical storm force elsewhere as far as sustained winds as we go throughout the day today. And as far as the forecast is concerned, we're looking at more rain to accumulate around South Florida. Key Biscayne, over 8 inches was reported. In Miami, already up to 4, and in Miramar, nearing 3 inches. So a flood threat will be imminent across South Florida all the way through Monday evening with the flood watch in effect. Some of the models are saying 10 to 15 inches, isolated amounts of up to 20 for some areas. The Florida Keys could see isolated amounts of up to 25 inches of rain. So here's the forecast. This morning, landfall will happen around the lower Florida Keys, and the models are showing heavy rain and wind spreading into South Florida, especially southwest Florida, as it brushes the Sunshine State and rides along the state. And then Monday morning, the rain will persist across the area, and we'll still have a chance of rain going into Tuesday morning. After that, sunny skies, mostly dry weather will return to the area, but there is a hurricane warning in effect for South Florida for hurricane conditions likely in the warning area in the next 24 hours, or at least continuing throughout the next day or so. But this warning extends into Daytona Beach and Jacksonville and a good portion of the Big Bend area of Florida, Panama City under a tropical storm warning, the coastline of Georgia under a tropical storm warning. The points inland around Georgia under a tropical storm watch. Around the immediate coastline of Miami-Dade and southwest Florida, the Florida Keys under a storm surge warning. I'll be back with another update in a few minutes.
Vivian, thank you so much. All right, now we have an opportunity to speak with Miami Fire Rescue Captain Iggy Carroll on the phone. Iggy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Thank you for being up with us at 3 in the morning on a Sunday. So how has rescue been? What have you guys been encountering? Have people been good and staying off the roadways?
Well, yeah, they're definitely adhering to the curfew. At least 95% of the people are. But some of the challenges that we are dealing with is with 911 calls. We want people to understand that with 911 calls, with the wind gusts, you can't respond. It's too dangerous for first responders to go. So we're having to field the calls and respond when it's safe for the stations to go out there. So we have them to assess it, and if they're able to respond, then they do that safely. But we want people to understand that it's very difficult for them to respond out there, and they can't expect a 4 to 6 minute response time when you need to assess the situation out there before responding.
And Captain, I want to say first and foremost here, I have the utmost respect for you and your colleagues. I've worked with you, Iggy, for so many years out in the field. You guys do such a great job protecting us, protecting South Florida. We just want to thank you. I know your families are at home, and you're staying up with us. You're making sure on the streets right now that people are safe. So first off, again, I want to thank you. Secondly, as we look ahead of this storm, I think Brian Lynn was talking about it, and our other reporters, you still don't want to go out in the standing water. It can be very dangerous. What would you tell our viewers as we get to the other side of Hurricane Irma? What can they do to protect themselves?
Well, you know, you have some people that have been through it before, but definitely you're going to have a lot of hazards once the storm has passed. And like Vivian said earlier, just because the storm has moved a little to the west doesn't mean that we're out of the cone of danger, or that the fact that there's still not a hazard out there. But what we encourage people to do is to assess the damaged areas of their homes safely, but don't go out and start walling through the water or thinking that they want to go and see what other areas look like, because there's potential for wires that are down. There's areas that could be severely flooded where you can't see what the street conditions are like below the water. And we've had situations before where manholes have actually come loose, and you could be walking and you fall right into one. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration, but we ask that you just use, precaution when you're walking around.
And we're looking, Iggy, and for those viewers who are actually listening to us on the radio, we're looking at some street flooding as we're talking to you. So you mentioned that you were getting some 911 calls, and of course you guys can't go out if the winds are too strong, stronger than 40 miles an hour. What kind of calls, what are people saying when they call in for 911? What are they asking for?
Well, you have some that have some different medical issues, but then you also have some people who are doing some things at home that they possibly got injured. And when you're in a hurricane mode where you're waiting for the storm to pass by, try to do things that is not going to get you hurt. You got to understand that if you need 911 to respond, it would be very difficult to do that. So we ask people not to do anything that could cause them to hurt themselves.
And Captain, how are you working with the police department, on the logistics side of things here? I guess you're tapping into the EOC. Is that sort of the hub for communications?
Right. The EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, is where the base of the operations is, and this is where you have multiple agencies besides the police department. To answer your question, we're working very closely with them, with responding on calls. But I think as first responders as a whole, we definitely want people to follow by the curfew rules. They're in place for a reason. The winds can cause a lot of debris to become projectiles, and that's how a lot of people get hurt. So I think first responders as a whole are definitely working close together to make sure that their community is safe.
Captain Carroll, as daybreak starts in a couple of hours, what are you anticipating some of your calls will be?
Well, we believe that as daybreak comes around, we're probably going to have some people that are going to try to assess some of the damage. They'll probably try to do that in between the wind gusts, thinking that it's a good time to go out, but they need to understand that it's still going to be close to us, and we want them to use caution, but really wait till the storm has passed by, and the only way they'll know that is by monitoring your media stations.
Captain, you've worked these storms before. How does this one compare to storms in the past? We had Hurricane Matthew last year. Obviously, that one was further off the east coast of Florida. Does it appear, from your vantage point, driving throughout the region, that people have been listening to the warnings and staying safe?
This is definitely a big storm, and I know that we've had our share of storms here before, but I think people adhere to the order to evacuate. We know some people have stayed around, but as of now, I think we've been very, very fortunate, and we don't want to jinx it, so we're going to knock on wood and just wait for it to pass us up so that we can go ahead and go into the recovery phase.
And maybe one last question here, Captain. Any communication with the shelters? Do you know how that situation's going?
Yes, in the city we have 4 shelters, and what we've done is that we've staffed it with paramedics at each one of them, so that if there was any kind of medical incident that takes place, we're able to have personnel there to respond. And then just like with regular 911 calls, when we feel that it's safe that if they need to be transported, then we would facilitate a transport in between those periods when the winds are not as strong as they normally are.
Wow, we did not know that. So medical shelters in Miami are staffed with first responders who also had to leave their families and are working around the clock. Captain Ignatius Carroll, thank you so much for talking to us today on the phone here on Sunday morning at 3:15 with Miami Fire Rescue. Wish you guys all the best, and again, thank you so much for your service. Wish you the best as day breaks. And just to repeat what Captain Carroll mentioned again, if you call 911, they're not going to be able to come out to you if winds are too strong, more than 40 miles an hour. Don't be getting on a ladder or doing dangerous things at home that may cause risk to you, because a risk to you is a risk to a first responder as well. That's really interesting about the shelters, and that's
didn't know that.
Yeah, we didn't know that exactly. We saw some video about an hour ago of Miami shores. It was incredible. It looked like somebody was in a boat and shot some video of you know, the ocean with some homes in the background, but actually it was flooding in Miami Shores. Somebody was in a car, not a good idea to do it, and was shooting with their cell phone. So the Shores apparently has a little bit of flooding. Let's go to Sheldon Fox. He's in Miami Shores, and we have him live. Sheldon, I think.
Hey, Lynn and Jeff. You know, Lynn, you talk about the winds being strong. Well, they're especially strong right here in Miami Shores. We were told by the cops just a few minutes ago to stay well away from the seawall, which they don't trust. And we'll show it to you now. And Patricio, I want you to be careful here because it's a vulnerable spot. That sea. Look at the waves crashing up on that thing. This is 96th Street where it meets Bayshore Drive, 96th Street and Biscayne Bay, essentially. A gorgeous section of Miami Shores on a better day than this. It's pretty scary and frightening now, and we can show you the flooding in the street. Lots of water put in the street from all this, and we saw it looking a lot worse than how it looks right now. It looks pretty bad, really bad. The cops drove up and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing out here?" I said, "Look, we're out here trying to inform the public that this is unsafe. We're covering the effects of Hurricane Irma." They said, "Look, do us a favor, stay away from that seawall because, well, we don't trust it." Guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really good advice because, you know, they don't want you to get hurt because they don't have to jump in and help you or maybe feel bad about it. But that's pretty incredible. So, Sheldon, it looks really dark behind you. Is that because that's the bay, or is there, you think, some power outages?
Well, yeah, it's a combination of both. The power actually here, Lynn, looks like it's, for the most part, it looks like it's held up. Sometimes they've got generators that power these lights. These lights along, Patricio, you'll get a good shot of those lights up against the bay there. If you can get a shot of those lights and the waves that are coming, the lighting camera-wise isn't really the best. And yeah, part of that is the open bay and the darkness along the open bay and on it. But this section of Miami Shores, strangely enough, I see lighting, but it could also be, oh, you need a wipe, don't you? It could also be, Lynn, a matter of people having generators or, you know, the special lights on the outside of their homes. But needless to say, this is not the spot to be walking around yet. This is still a really kind of dangerous situation. Lots of heavy winds. The rain, no picnic either. It's pelting me in the face. I'm glad for this hood.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the generators. Not a good time to use a generator. We don't know. I mean, we're guessing, you just guessed. Maybe they're generators, maybe it's special lighting. But just a reminder to everybody, you're not supposed to break out your generators until the winds have died down. And when they do die down, we'll talk about generators in the morning sometime when day breaks, and how to do that safely. You always want to have your generator outside. You don't want to run it in your garage with it being closed.
Very dangerous.
Exactly. So Sheldon, how long have you been in the Shores? And you know, this evening, not your whole life, but I mean, how's it been?
It's been unpleasant all night. We were over by, you remember the boats that were coming up from that seawall and sort of the storm surge that sent the boats sort of bobbing up and down. There were a couple of boats that were, we had some boats on lifts that looked like they were going to be fine, and they ended up getting slammed. Lots of metal clanking, and in one case we had a boat that, if it survives and even stays tied down at that marina, the Quayside Marina, which is very close to Miami Shores, northeast Miami-Dade, the same bay that we're looking at right here, just a little bit, basically to my right, really. So we've been in the Shores all night, to answer your question, Lynn, for the most part, if not the Shores, very close to it. And it's been windy, it's been rainy, it's been especially strong with the wind, and I wish that we could go a little bit closer to that seawall, but I don't want to chance it. The surge near the Shores and in northeast Miami-Dade is what's really the eye-popping thing here. Look at how the waves are crashing up. Look at all the white water that comes off of that seawall. It's no fun.
Yeah.
Unless you like getting wet and getting pelted by, the salt water actually tastes kind of good.
You need some chips
What's
with
that?
Cleans the mouth, right? Sheldon, the shot is kind of dark right there. If you could guess, how deep do you think that surge water is where you're at in the Shores?
How deep do you think the water is?
Say it one more time. How
deep do you think that water is, that surge water right there?
Oh, how deep? You know, I can tell you this, it's let up a little bit. We had more water, it's draining well, because we had more water in the street earlier, and the rain hasn't stopped, and, you know, the fact that, well, I would say a couple, maybe a foot and a half, maybe 2, and I think it was higher earlier. So kudos to the shores for having good drainage, because the water does go down. That's a positive.
Yeah, that is storm surge, and that is a positive. It is going down. Wow, that's pretty significant. Sheldon Fox, thank you, and to you and your photographer and all of our reporters out there bringing you the effects of Hurricane Irma.
We have a great team, don't we?
Yeah, we really do.
I mean, everyone's working hard. It's early in the morning. You know, the eye of the storm is still 2 hours south, you know, moving up to the Keys, and everyone's working so hard trying to give us, and you at home, the vantage point of what's going on outside. And, you know, it's a big team effort here going on.
You want some good news? Okay, so there was this dog who was in a canal, and look at this. He was about to go under, and this is in Deerfield Beach. And when a firefighter, I believe, first responders, saw the dog was struggling, jumped in, swam about 1,000 feet to get the dog, and just as he was about to go under because the dog was exhausted from treading water, he rescued him. And I think he put a little doggy vest around him, or some sort of vest, and swam back to shore, plucked him out, helped him out with some resuscitation, I believe, gave him some doggy CPR, and he was reunited with his owner. This was about before things got really nasty. What day is it? Sunday? This was maybe 8 hours ago, 6 hours ago. Deerfield Beach, first responders, you know, kudos to them, saving a life, whether it be animal or human.
Every call is different. They never know what they're going to get themselves into. And we just talked to Captain Ignatius Carroll with City of Miami Fire Rescue. These guys working so hard around the clock. You know, again, not knowing what call they're going to go to. And that's why they want people to stay indoors so they don't have to respond. But if they do, they're there and ready to step up if they need to.
And swimming 1,000 feet, it's not easy, exactly. I'm probably jumped in, obviously, with his clothes on. Let's go to Alex Diarmas at the news desk for more on power issues.
I like that video of the dog, right? It's a little bit of good news, and it just shows that we gotta all stick together here no matter what and help each other out. But yeah, Lynn, I have video of, check this out. This right here, these are not fireworks. Not fireworks.
Okay, I think we're having some audio issues right there with Alex. We'll see if we can get her hooked up. But looks like a power line right there, sparking. Pinecrest is where this video is coming from.
Wow.
And, you know, wet weather, electricity do not mix. And this is what happens when, you know, we start to get those power outages and we start to see those transformers
It looks like 4th of July. Isn't it beautiful? It's not beautiful when it's in your backyard.
Dangerous.
Very scary. Okay, it's 3:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning covering Hurricane Irma for you, and you know, maybe Alex, you forgot to put on your mic. It's happened to me numerous times when I am not tired, so I don't know what happened. But let's go back to Alex. Tell us where this is and what we're seeing.
Yeah, Lynn and Jeff, sorry about that. Yeah, this is Pinecrest, to be exact, 106th Street and Southwest 73rd Court. And like you said, this looks like fireworks. It's not. These are power lines sparking. You can see the explosions. And just a few moments ago, we showed you some video of transformers as they were blown out across town. We showed you video from Coral Gables and Miami, but this right here, if you're listening to us on the radio, imagine a sky filled with fireworks, except they're not. They're power lines. And it's one after another after another. We know a number of people are without power this morning at 3:22. So a lot of people waking up on this Sunday morning without power, and it's because of this reason. The rain, the wind, not helping out the situation. This was sent to us by a 7 News viewer just a few minutes ago, and we continue to get these videos from you at home, and we thank you for that. And as soon as we have something else, we'll bring it to you. But again, not fireworks. These are power lines. Lynn and Jeff?
And look at the result there.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah, you know, you wonder, like, how they got that video. Maybe they heard some popping and they went to the window and started recording, but that was incredible. Looks to be a transformer blowing.
Got to be safe when you shoot that video, too.
You really do. And it's so loud and scary. I hate when that happens and transformers blow. But FPNL says they're working on repairing as we speak. Miami-Dade, almost 165,000 residents without power. Broward County, almost 75,000. Palm Beach County, almost 22,000.
Okay, and I think we have some live pictures. We're here in the studio, and we have a metal roof, and we can hear the rain. This is our roof camera in North Bay Village, pretty much right in the middle of Biscayne Bay, and got a rain band moving on through. You can see that camera kind of jittering right there, shaking around in that wind as another band from Hurricane Irma makes her way through North Bay Village.
Good news is not a car in sight. That's good news because safety first. Let's go to Vivian Gonzalez in the Weather Center for more on Irma. Vivian?
That's right, Lynn and Jeff. As of the 3 o'clock update, or at least just for the position, Irma still remains a Cat 4 system, 130 mile per hour winds. It's moving slowly to the northwest at 6 miles per hour and located 65 miles to the southeast of Key West, Florida. Now, the satellite picture in the last couple of hours has been showing a healthier looking Irma because its interaction with the northern coast here of Cuba weakened it a little bit, but the center managed to stay, or at least a good portion of it, over the waters where it maintained that major status. But now well over the Florida Straits and making its way towards the northwest, closing in on the lower Florida Keys, we've been finding that it's been reorganizing and intensifying, and it's a Cat 4 system once again. The outer bands reaching as far north as north and central Florida. Also, Cuba continues to get pounded with plenty of heavy rain and also strong winds. Now, the center of Irma, you could clearly tell where it's located on the local storm tracking radar. These deep shades of reds, that's where we're finding the most destructive winds around the eyewall. And these are the ones that have those sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. The outer bands of Irma making it into South Florida and producing squally weather, strong gusty winds, and even last night producing some tornadoes. Now, around parts of Jupiter and West Palm Beach, heavy rain, lots of lightning sitting offshore, the same for Boca Raton. We move on over into portions of Broward County, from Deerfield Beach into Parkland along the Sawgrass, well inland into Coral Springs. We have moderate rain, even Tamarack. Parts of Palm Ave along the Florida Turnpike also getting drenched. Lauderhill, Sunrise, even Plantation seeing lots of heavy rain. And if you're wondering what the weather is like in Davie, Cooper City, Southwest Ranches, steady rain and moderate and heavy at times, even into Royal Palm Ranches, I-75 all the way into US 27. We move on over into parts of Country Club, Hialeah, and Miami Lakes also dealing with steady rainfall. Now heavier as we move on into the coastline around Hollywood and Dania Beach. We move into Doral around parts of 74th Street, 58th Street. That's where we're finding some constant rain. Miami Springs around Okeechobee Road too. Then we move on into Brickell Hammocks and Coral Gables into South Miami, and even Sunset getting pounded with heavy rain and some strong wind gusts being reported here. We move on over into inland portions of central Miami-Dade, Country Walk, the Hammocks, also parts of Homestead, Naranja, Florida City, seeing that consistent rain moving in onshore because of the outer bands of Irma. And the Florida Keys just don't get a break, from Key Largo through Marathon, even Key West. And you could clearly see that the center of Irma is just closing in on the lower Florida Keys. And the system is so large and so powerful that we've been feeling it here. As far as a tornado watch is concerned, it will run through 12 o'clock today, and the center is expected to be passing the lower Florida Keys right around 8 o'clock this morning as a potential Category 3 system moving over or near the west coast of Florida by this evening with 120 mile per hour winds, possibly brushing Tampa and Sarasota. Very serious situation for them that is expected down the road. And then eventually a Cat 1 system impacting the Big Bend area of Florida down the road around Georgia, lower Mississippi Valley. That's when we're going to start to see significant weakening and Irma starting to rain itself out. As far as Irma is concerned, it's a Cat 4 system, and closer to home, we're going to be feeling stronger winds as a result of Irma, and the hurricane force winds extend about 70 miles out from the center, and the tropical storm force winds 205 miles out from the center. And that means that around inland Broward and Miami-Dade, at least when Irma is starting to move through the Florida Keys, that's the interior portions will be feeling hurricane force winds of maybe a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 system, but tropical storm force winds sustained elsewhere. Right now, gusts are clocking in at 54 miles per hour in West Kendall, 49 in downtown Miami to 68 mile per hour wind gusts in the Florida Keys. Now, the forecast throughout the next 24 hours is calling for gusts to range near hurricane force along the immediate coastline, despite the fact that Irma will be moving away from the parts of South Florida, or at least southwest coast of Florida. So we're going to be feeling the long-lasting effects of this statewide affair. Rain estimates so far in Key Biscayne, almost 8.5 inches of rain in Key Biscayne, Miami, 4 inches, nearing 3 inches in Miramar, and a flood watch will remain in effect until Monday evening. A lot of the models are saying 10 to 15 inches of rain, isolated amounts of up to 20. And for the Florida Keys, some areas could see about 25 inches of rain, and that's not taking into account the flooding that they will see because of storm surge. Now, here's the futurecast to show you that the center of Irma will make landfall in the lower Florida Keys in the next couple of hours, probably just before 8 o'clock this morning. And then it will start to move on towards the north. We're still going to be feeling the rain persisting all the way through Monday morning, and by Monday evening, the rain will start to wind down a little bit. So at least through Tuesday, we have a good rain chance in the forecast, but the wind will start to lighten up a little bit by then. There is a hurricane warning in effect for all of South Florida for the potential of experiencing hurricane conditions in as far as winds and also weather-related events across South Florida in the warning area. The same for a good portion of the state. The Panhandle, tropical storm warning, but along both coastlines, not including Broward and Palm Beach right now, there is a storm surge warning in effect. That's the very latest.
Vivian, I'm not sure if you can, or upstairs, well, we can kind of see it over our shoulder here, the radar. We see that deepest red around the eyewall. There it is, right there. Lynn's pointing it. There we go, close up. What is Key West, almost over to Marathon, what are they about to experience in further detail when that ring begins to make its way over the Keys?
Well, they are already experiencing hurricane conditions because the hurricane force winds already extend 70 miles out from the center, and the actual center is about 60 miles to the southeast of Key West. So hurricane conditions will sustain winds already of 130 miles per hour, already reaching the lower Florida Keys. And that is certainly a very serious and potentially catastrophic situation for them, not in terms of just only winds, but as far as surge is concerned, because they get it from both sides. So it's like a 1-2 punch for them. So they get it from the north side and the southern side of Irma too, and then it gets enhanced during times of high tide. So a very, very serious situation for them.
And the National Hurricane Center predicted that the islands would be underwater. So our hearts go out to everybody in Key West and all of the Keys. Poor Key West. Vivian Gonzalez, thank you so much. As soon as we get pictures out of Key West, that's the number one thing that we want to see, of course. We'll turn it around for you. That could be quite some time. Yeah. Let's go now to Miami Beach and 7's Brian Enton, who was experiencing a little bit of surge and flooding when we spoke to him a short time ago. Brian?
So we've actually moved to Watson Island. We are right behind Parrot Jungle on Watson Island, and there is this boat ramp back here. We were actually here earlier today, and there's problems here now. There's a huge difference from earlier today. These boats that you see here, like this one right here, this is a boat that was anchored out in the bay here and has come loose from its anchor and has drifted in and is now just pushing against the ramp right here. So when we were here maybe 6 hours ago, that boat, like all the others, was anchored out in the bay. Basically, the owners anchored them out there rather than having them at the dock, thinking that they would be safer from the storm. But the issue is a number of these boats, including this one, have now come loose from their anchors or dragged their anchors because of the high winds, and they are now crashing up against the boat ramps right here. It's the same thing over here, if you follow me over here, as we see the waves coming up. This is another boat. This one was up here earlier, and this is another one that was anchored out in the bay and has now shifted up. This one is called Captain Hook, and it is now actually halfway underwater. Behind it, that beautiful fishing boat you see, that one was at least a couple hundred feet further in the bay when we were here earlier, and it is now getting dangerously close to the shoreline also. So that one is apparently dragging. So not a good situation for these boats. Let's go over here, Luis. Let's show them. This goes on and on. There's actually a sailboat. I want to take you around the corner over here. We saw a sailboat earlier today that we could tell was dragging. This was still during the daylight, like around 5 or 6 o'clock. And now look where this sailboat is. You can see the mast sticking out through the top of these trees right here. It has now completely slammed into the shoreline. And this is not a good situation for this boat. Luckily, there doesn't seem to be anyone on board any of these boats that are out here. They were just anchored out in the bay, and then the owners left them, hoping that they'd be okay during the storm. But you see this sailboat is now on its side in the trees here, and this is not the only one. There are a few others. Let me see how far down there. I don't know if we want to walk all the way down, but there's at least 2 others just like this sailboat that are in the trees, washed up on the shore. So not a good situation right now at this little harbor behind Parrot Jungle on Watson Island. Jeff and Lynn.
Wow. And, you know, we talked to you maybe 5 hours ago when you reported live on Watson Island, Brian, and it was a little lighter, and it was really, the bay was filled with sailboats that were moored down, tied down, and that is a beautiful boat behind you, large, and it looks to be total devastation. And we were talking about this. Imagine, as we look at this live picture of this boat just slammed against the rocks, you know, again, where we were not even in the eye. We are outside of the eye. These are the outer bands of feeder bands that have been relentless throughout this whole 20 hours or so, because the storm is moving so slowly.
Just imagine Key West.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. So we're getting some damage from the feeder bands. Imagine what our friends in Key West are going through right now in the eye of this Category 4 storm. Wow.
Okay, Brian, get safe for a few moments.
This is.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, you got it.
No, go ahead.
No,
go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, yeah, this is just the wind. This is the wind pushing these boats, the waves and the wind. And my grandpa had a boat similar to this, a sailboat. And what they would do is when there was a storm coming, a tropical storm or hurricane, this is exactly what they did. Rather than have it at a dock where it can be damaged when the waves come and push it up against the pilings in the dock, a lot of people who own boats, they decide to take them out in the bay and anchor them thinking that they'll be safer. But apparently that's not the case for a lot of the boats here in this little waterway behind Parrot Jungle.
Yeah, that's true. And dry docking, you know, a regular boat it can be very expensive. So, yeah, I'm sure they were hoping for the very best and did their very best to anchor it down. Thank you so much, Brian Enton, reporting there with his photographer from Watson Island on some significant boat damage from those strong winds.
I think boat repair shops are going to be very busy.
Yeah, and insurance companies.
That too, yeah, as we survey all this damage. Talking about the power now, going back to that, Florida Power and Light, I believe we have a representative from FPL on the phone right now. Brian Garner, are you with us?
I'm with you. Thanks for having me, Lynn and Jeff.
Yeah, you bet. Brian, I know you guys are working hard, you and your crews. Kind of bring us up to speed with power outages here in South Florida.
Sure. Well, you've been tracking the storm just as we have, and as you know, Miami-Dade, Broward County starting to feel some of the serious effects of this storm. Currently, I think there are 164,000 customers in Miami-Dade County who have lost power, and approximately 74,000 customers in Broward County. But this is just the beginning of this storm for Florida. As you know, we've been saying all week that we expect millions of customers will be impacted by this storm because it will span much of the state. The good news is we've got a lot of folks on the ground ready to respond. 16,000 people are here, part of our restoration force from 30 different states and Canada. They've been streaming into the state all week, and they are pre-positioned so that as soon as the winds let up, they're going to get in there and restore power until every customer's lights are back on.
Yeah, we're looking, Mr. Garner, at video we're looping for our viewers. And actually, we're going to go back to the radar, but we were looking at all those trucks, FP&L trucks on the road, ready to help. And of course, as we talked about, and you just talked about, getting help from other states around the country. Tell listeners who maybe are listening who do not have power right now what they can expect. Do they need to call you? And, you know, the number one question is, when are we going to get our power back on?
Of course. And so the first question you asked, do they need to call us? The best way to stay connected with us, there's an FPL mobile app. You can download it either on Google Play or the App Store. That's a great way to stay connected with us. You can report an outage. You can get updates on the status of the outage and the restoration. Also, fpl.com/storm on your mobile device. It's a great way to stay connected with us. But we also have a smarter grid than we did the last time a major hurricane hit Florida 10 years ago. And so we do have, between the smart meters on your home or your business and devices along the grid, we have greater visibility. So we do have a sense of who is out of power. And rest assured, we are going to be out there restoring power around the clock until people are restored. As far as when people will get their power back on, we won't have an exact estimate until the storm passes and we get the full extent of the damage. Those who are on the southwest corner of our state and up the west coast where they may face a direct hit from this, Category 3 or stronger winds, they may be facing a rebuilding of the grid in many cases. So rather than days, it could be weeks before that entire grid is rebuilt. In other places where it is lower wind speeds, we could be looking at days of restoration. So it really depends on where you are and the extent of the damage.
And Brian, I was just going to ask you that, you know, speaking about the Keys, and we're looking at the radar loop right here of Hurricane Irma. Looks like it's doing a beeline right for Key West. Vivian Gonzalez, our meteorologist, saying that the eye would likely pass sometime around 8 o'clock this morning. With your knowledge of the Keys, are a lot of the lines buried there? You know, what are you going to be facing on the flip side of this? I mean, this is a destructive storm, Category 4. It will likely hit Key West as. What's going to happen to the power grid, like you said there?
Those are above-ground lines. They actually are not FPL lines. It's served by a cooperative utility. The Keys are, we represent half the state, about 5 million customers, but not in the Florida Keys. It is obviously going to be a very challenging situation for utility workers in the Keys because they are directly in the line of fire here.
And so back to our question about what viewers and listeners can do if they have a power outage. You mentioned you have the FP&L app. We can also go online, but for those who maybe don't have a smartphone or they don't have a computer, maybe they have a landline, do you advise them to just, you know, not give you a call because you know that their power is out, or what should they do?
Yes, I would say we are going to know if you're out of power. So you can report it through your mobile device because that's a great way to stay in touch and get updates on the status of the outage and the restoration, but rest assured, we are going to know that you're out of power. And in fact, when we start restoring power, once the storm passes, our crews will go out into neighborhoods, and thanks to the smart grid, instead of only restoring power to a single home who might report an outage, our folks will have an iPad, and they'll be able to see everyone in that neighborhood, and they won't leave until every single customer is restored. And that's some of the value of the technology we now have along our grid.
Mr. Garner, yeah, we were talking about this earlier. You know, why is it that some people in the last, I don't know, 5 hours or so, their power went off and then it was restored or came back on? Is there some sort of, I know I'm watering this down for myself mainly, is there a computer or a button that somebody can push that you guys go, okay, let's fix it from here, where, you know, you don't have to have crews out in this weather?
Yeah, part of the value of the smart grid, in addition to the meters on your home or your business, we have devices along the poles and wires that can actually reroute power So let's say a tree or a branch falls on a line that impacts your home. We can reroute the power to a different line that serves your home and restore your power automatically in some cases. Also, what you might be seeing is we have folks out there restoring power during this storm. If the winds let up below 35 miles an hour, we may have crews out there working to restore your power even as the storm is moving through. So rest assured that we're out there doing our best to keep the lights on. This is going to be a challenging storm, and we're just seeing the beginning of it now.
And Brian, we're looking at some video right now of some transformers kind of popping off. You see that, blue and green spark or explosion there. What's happening right when that happens? I mean, I would assume instantaneously, or instantly rather, people lose power, right? When you see that or when you hear that?
In some cases, yes. And a lot of times what's happening is debris is coming in contact with the lines, perhaps a branch that is connecting 2 or 3 power lines and causing an outage. As you know, we haven't had a major hurricane hit South Florida in over a decade. So there's a lot of vegetation here in South Florida. And when the winds kick up, that becomes a missile. It becomes a real obstacle for the electric grid when it comes in contact with the wires. And it is causing many of the outages that we're seeing tonight.
Let's say, okay, as Irma begins to move on through, I'm driving down the street, a electrical wire falls on my vehicle. What do I do in that case? Because I'm sure with these wind gusts, somebody may find themselves in a situation like that.
Well, the first thing we'd say is safety should be everyone's top priority. It is our priority here at FPL, and you really should not be out on the roads. Right now, as I'm sure you guys have been advising on the air and all the emergency officials have, you should be someplace safe, either in a shelter, in your own home, buttoned up, or evacuated. So nobody should be on the roads right now. After the storm passes, when it is safe to do so and you are driving around, so you're clear of standing water, you never know what's in there. It could be a down power line. It could be energized. So do not go through flood waters. And just steer clear of any power lines, because until we clean up this debris, there could be a lot of dangerous situations out there. And we advise all of our customers to let us do our jobs, don't come near power lines, and just be safe in everything that they do.
Brian Garner, thank you so much for that information. You're with FP&L, working very hard to restore power as we speak. And Mr. Garner mentioned it could be hours before your power is restored, days, or in some cases, weeks. Also want to pass along that we're getting this from the National Hurricane Center, tweeting that sustained hurricane force winds from Irma expected to reach the Florida Keys within the next 1 to 2 hours. Sustained hurricane force winds, which means they're going to get at least 74 mile per hour winds for a while. They are getting hammered. So, we can't stress this enough. We feel so much compassion for everybody in the Florida Keys, who had to stay, who wanted to stay, and hope that they're well and safe. And the damage is definitely going to be significant as you look at this eye wall about to cover the Keys. And we have some damage here as well.
Yeah, outside our studios here in North Bay Village, that is a carport. That building is where our studio is located, or right next to it, and you can see that kind of metal roof structure right there has peeled back, likely with one of those big wind gusts that moved through. We've seen a number of rain bands over the last few hours, from Saturday on into now Sunday morning, and this is continuous out there, and this is why you don't go outside. You could be walking down the street, which we advise not to do, but if you were, a piece of that metal siding could come hit you in the head, knock you unconscious, and we'd have a whole nother situation on our hands. So, good example right here of why we tell people and why first responders tell people to stay inside when these storms are in the area.
Yeah, and that's just flopping around. That's pretty scary. All right, let's now go to the city of Miami. 7's Joe Rhodes. You're getting pelted again. I'm glad to see you have some protective eyewear on now.
Yeah, that's right, guys. I promised my wife that I would actually wear these at some point. That's why I waited until it was, 3:45 in the morning. I promised her I would wear these at some point. But I need it because we're actually facing the wind right now. As I told you earlier, it was mainly wind that we were dealing with. Well, now it's the rain coming down with the wind, and it's coming down pretty hard. I'm using our wind gauge here, kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with where we're standing here.
Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Well, we're going to go back to you in 2 seconds. I know you're telling us how strong the wind is there in Miami. I don't know if you can hear me. Joe, we're going to come back to you in 2 seconds. I want to turn things over to Vivian.
Yeah, Vivian, tornado warning, what do we have?
Yeah, the Weather Service had sent us just moments ago a statement saying that they've been monitoring several water spouts off the coast in Broward County, but now there's a tornado warning for northeastern Broward County, southeastern Palm Beach until 4:15, and severe weather has been spotted capable of producing tornadoes along a line extending from Ocean Ridge to Port Everglades, and it's moving quickly northwest at around 30 miles per hour. So a tornado could be possible with this activity that we're monitoring on the local storm tracking radar. All of those areas that you saw highlighted in red under that tornado warning. But these are the locations that we're monitoring under the advisory or that warning, especially close to Port Everglades. And this activity is just booking quickly. These are the outer feeder bands of Irma that are capable of spinning up some severe weather out there. And yes, a tornado is possible with this activity that's right about here and moving to the northwest at around 30 miles per hour. What we could possibly see with this is flying debris. It will be dangerous to those who get caught without shelter. So if you're in this vicinity, anywhere in northeastern Broward County, make sure that you take shelter. Mobile homes will definitely be damaged or destroyed as a result. Damage to roofs, windows, and vehicles could possibly happen, especially with a tornado that could be potentially on the ground. So this activity here, as we storm track it for you, Oakland Park, at around 3:54 this morning, you could see the strong thunderstorm. Palm Air at 4:02. 4:07 in North Lauderdale, and around sunrise at 4:15. Andytown, 4:37. This storm right here moving to the northwest at around 30 miles per hour. All of these locations from Palm Beach into Broward County, and that includes Fort Lauderdale and off the coast into Port Everglades. Tornado warning in effect until 4:15.
Vivian, real quick, and then we'll go back to Joe. You know, we talked to Phil about this earlier, just for people that may be just tuning in or didn't hear us earlier. Tornado warning, tornado watch. So tornado warning, it means it's ripe. It's about to happen, right?
That is correct. A watch lets us know that all the ingredients are present for us to see tornadoes developing. A warning is a potential for a tornado to already be out there. And there are a couple different ways on how we detect a possible tornado on the radar. It could be radar indicated, letting us know that there could be a tornado embedded with a thunderstorm, or the actual radar signature is detected and letting us know that there's a tornado on the ground. And the third way that we detected a tornado is basically when it's visible to the eye, to the human eye. So right now this is a radar indicated possible tornado. Now, while in a tornado warning, this is what you do. You move to the interior room on the lowest floor and avoid windows. And if you're outside, move to the closest shelter. And impacts of a tornado, once again, could be flying debris, damaged and or destroyed mobile homes, damage to roofs, windows, vehicles, and tree damage likely, with some broken tree limbs on the roadway, scattered about out on the roadway.
Okay, there you go. Vivian Gonzalez, thank you so much. Tornado warning issued for northeastern Broward, and Jeff and I have been talking about this for hours. The reason why we have all these tornadoes is because we are on the dirty side, the ugly side of the storm. The northeastern quadrant. I always have to think in the circle of the pie that Phil always talks about. So this is going to happen, and it has been happening since yesterday. All right, let's go back to Joe Rhodes. Let's go back to that windy situation, covered eyewear, and it's nasty there in downtown Miami.
Yeah, it sure is. You know, as I was saying just before we went back to Vivian there, it is definitely the windiest I think that we've seen it all night, and these are definitely sustained winds. You know, we have our wind gauge here, kind of give you an idea of just what we're dealing with here. We're more than 31, 32 miles per hour for our wind here, where we're standing just off Bayshore Drive, north of the Venetian Causeway. As you take a look here behind me, I heard you guys on the phone moments ago with the FPL spokesman. You know, what we're dealing with here is the heavy wind, but amazingly, all of the power where we are is still on. I mean, you can see it in the parking garage down the way. There's a building there, you know, just another block over that has its lights on. We're right next to the Marriott Hotel. this actually has its lights on as well. And unbelievably, I mean, it took a while because, I mean, considering the time of the morning, it is 4 o'clock in the morning, well, just before 4 o'clock. I just saw about 2 or 3 people come out, and they were hanging out on the steps of the Marriott over there. So, I mean, there's some life out here, and people are poking their head out, and they want to know what this is like. So, again, we are over next to a marina, and even with this heavy rain, and now that I can put my back to it, I can take off my little protective eyewear. We are dealing with this rain right now. It's the first, you know, hard rain that we've seen in a good hour or so. But we do have a bunch of boats out here. We've been keeping an eye on them. I've walked back and forth. They all are tied up. You know, they're all, you know, they're not going anywhere. They are rocking back and forth pretty strong at this point. But, you know, even with all the wind, they're not going anywhere. None of them have broken free. None of them have crashed into each other. They're all holding pretty tight. Earlier in the day, before the sun went down, before the curfew went into effect here in Miami, which went into effect at 7 p.m. and lasts until 7 in the morning, there were some people coming down the street here to the marina because they docked their boats here and they wanted to see how they were holding up with the winds. Obviously, they weren't as bad as they are right now. There were also some people who live on board these boats who wanted to come out and make sure that their home was okay, you know, and they had maybe gotten a hotel room nearby to, you know, make sure that they stayed safe and everything. One family that I did see living on a...
Okay, just lost Joe Rhodes' signal. Really windy there in downtown Miami, but where he was at, he was doing a great job describing these large, beautiful, expensive boats behind him. Still have power. They are still docked very well. The moorings are nice and tight, and it does appear, even though it's still really dark behind him, that there is minimal, if no damage, at least in that area.
And we hope that it'll stay that way as we continue on. Omar Lewis, about 10 blocks away from Joe Rhodes. Omar, what's going on in your
Oh, you look
area?
fresh as a daisy and dry as a pencil, for now.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started this morning for now. That is exactly right. This is my condo building, actually here in Edgewater, Midtown, about 10 blocks up from where Joe is. But you can see these winds whipping this morning, these palm fronds just going crazy at this point because of these high wind gusts. I'm gonna flip our camera around actually to show you what this situation looks like. This is the pool at the condo here. You see these palm trees bending in the wind. This is actually the Biscayne Bay right after that. And if you look off into the distance, it's still dark at this point, but the water is lapping over into this area. That's that storm surge that we've been telling folks about all morning long. It is dark at this point. So, but just wanted to let you know that is what's going on. So these streets are quickly getting flooded and you can see this water doing what it's doing. But I also want to take you up and show you kind of behind here what the situation is. There are cranes right behind here, and in just a moment, you will see one of them flip around, and they are going very fast. We've been talking about these cranes for days now, and how there's about 20 to 25 different cranes here in the city of Miami. And there you see it. It's coming around that corner right now, whipping very fast. These cranes are flying around at this point because of these high wind speeds. And that is exactly the caution that the city of Miami put out there for folks to kind of stay away from these areas. But that is what we're seeing out here. Those high wind speeds causing the water to come in off the bay into the land here in Miami. And then you have this, the trees trying to hang on. People, of course, have their places boarded up. But this area, very sticky right now, and a lot of wind out here. Barely able to walk outside right now because of all of these wind gusts. We do have some downed trees in my neighborhood here, and I saw that as we were coming to this live shot location this morning. So that's something else that folks are dealing with. Trees down on the side of the road, palm fronds on the side of the road as well, because as you can imagine, these palm fronds are looking rather tired, and they have been battered for hours now, and we still have much more of this storm to go through. So folks in this area, we haven't seen a single person outside at this point, but taking you back up to that crane, just want to show you again just how fast these things are kind of whipping around in the wind. And they left them unlocked on purpose so that they could swing around. And that's what they're doing. And it is a scary sight to see when you walk out of your building and see a crane just flying in the wind like that. But dealing with some flooding here, the worst of it still on the way. But I just wanted to give you guys a look at kind of what's going on here in my neck of the woods here in Edgewater this morning. But we're going to send it back to you for now.
Thank you so much, Omar Lewis. Already losing your voice. Take care of yourself. Yeah, the winds are whipping there. Let's now head to Coconut Grove.
Lorena Estrada standing by, getting on shift for this morning. What's it like out there? Rainy and windy, as I see.
It has been. You know, I was watching you all yesterday, last night. I was able to get in like 2-3 hours of sleep, and it's not raining a whole lot, but it certainly hurts because of the wind. And you know, we've been just kind of watching our backs because we are at a marina. But I have to say, I know that a lot of the boaters, they doubled down on the rope. They removed everything that could fly off the boat. So I've been looking around, you know.
Okay, what we're hearing right now is a little static. That's with our connection, Lorena. We're going to work on fixing that. It sounded in the beginning like it was a strong wind. I know you're getting some strong winds there. Can you hear us now? Let's see if your audio is better.
I can hear you now. Could you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Sorry
perfect.
About that.
Go
I'm
ahead.
Not sure. I guess it happens when you have all this wind now, but no, we were just saying, and that's what'll happen. We'll get this gust of wind, and we just kind of move around. Either, you know, I'm not, I'm tiny, so you know, I definitely feel like the wind can push me around. Our photographer Carper here, so we're just kind of watching our backs. I was saying, just because, you know, when we were driving.
Okay, yeah, we're having problems with that XLR cable, I think, and the connection with the microphone.
Connection, yeah.
We'll let you fix that. And here, getting closer to the top of the 4 o'clock hours, we continue to monitor Hurricane Irma and the current conditions. Again, the eye of the storm is just about to start making its way on over the Florida Keys. Key West, man. Our friends down there, our thoughts are with the people in Key West, those who chose to stay behind. Some first responders stayed behind there. And that eye will be bearing down on Key West very shortly.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where this video is from, but again, we're talking about a Category 4 storm right now. This looks to be Key West a few hours ago. Lynn Martinez, along with Jeff Lennox, we're going to be with you to the very end. We're going to switch out crews in just a minute with Diana Diaz and 7's Alex DeArmas. But first, let's go to Vivian Gonzalez for more on where Irma is. Vivian?
That's right, Lynn and Jeff. And South Florida, we've been monitoring Irma's every move, and as of 3 o'clock this morning, winds remain at 130 miles per hour. It is a Category 4 hurricane, moving slowly to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. Right now, 65 miles southeast of Key West, Florida. Now, the radar throughout the last several hours has been indicating that the center of Irma was restructuring, and the likelihood that it passed through warm waters was there, and that is why it is back to a Category 4 system. Now, the center is very visible on the satellite picture, indicating that it's a very strong hurricane. The outer band's already reaching the majority of the Sunshine State and drenching parts of Cuba with some strong gusty winds too. But it's already moving very close to the lower Florida Keys. Now, here's a good view of the local storm tracking radar to show you that these deep shades of reds around the center of the storm, that's where we find the most destructive winds, those 130 mile per hour sustained winds. But then the outer feeder bands extend all the way into South Florida, Broward, and Miami-Dade. And moments ago, the Weather Service was indicating that a couple of waterspouts were detected on the radar, and we do have a tornado warning for a possible radar-indicated tornado in parts of northeast Broward County. So that tornado warning is in effect until 4:15, and this encompasses parts of Fort Lauderdale into Port Everglades too. So a possible tornado could be embedded with this activity that we're noticing on the local storm tracking radar. But anywhere from Deerfield Beach, Pompano, Oakland Park, between US 1, also parts of I-95, the Lauderhill, the Florida Turnpike, all under this warning, this tornado warning, because we've been monitoring this activity that's off the coast, and that will be capable of producing some tornadoes. So the radar in closer detail definitely showing that there's heavy, heavy rain associated here with the band that's moving in from Irma. And it's booking quickly to the northwest at around 30 miles per hour. Even Fort Lauderdale, Sunrise, Davie getting drenched right now into 595. This goes into Sheridan Street, Griffin Road, well inland into Weston and US 27, Pembroke Pines and Miramar. We move on into coastal Miami-Dade. We have pockets of lighter, steady rain, but moderate as we move into Bow Harbor and also Aventura, Surfside. Then we move into Hialeah and Miami Lakes, and it's quite heavy at times, even around Okeechobee Road and the 826. West Miami, also Southwest 8th Street, Flagler Street, also dealing with wet weather and consistent rain in Kendall Lakes. Moving into Chrome Avenue and also the hammocks into Kendall Drive, Palmetto Bay, and Homestead. So certainly lots of rain moving in as a result of Irma closing in on the lower Florida Keys, and they're just not getting any break from this activity anywhere between Key Largo, Marathon, and Key West, Boca Chica. And now we're getting word that there are sustained hurricane force winds around the lower Florida Keys. So certainly a very serious and unfortunate situation underway for them as the center closes in on the lower Keys, to be more specific. Right now, wind gusts 58 miles per hour, especially in Key West at this time, but we've had sustained winds of over 80 miles per hour in the area. We have 47 mile per hour winds right now along the East Coast in Miami, and a wind gust clocking in of 54 miles per hour in West Kendall, 45 in Pompano Beach. So here's the forecast cone just to show you that just before 8 o'clock in the morning, that is when Irma will be moving through the lower Florida Keys. After that, a potential Cat 3 system moving over or near the west coast of Florida, 120 mile per hour winds, and then it will possibly impact Tampa, Sarasota, St. Petersburg. Very serious for them too. Storm surge will be quite dangerous and life-threatening here. Then it will move through Cedar Key as a potential Category 1 hurricane, then interacting with land, falling apart around parts of the lower Mississippi Valley and Ohio River Valley later on in the week. But there is a hurricane warning in effect for the potential of seeing hurricane conditions in the warning area throughout the next 24 hours. And this warning extends into Tampa, Orlando around the I-4 corridor, Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, I-10, into a big portion, or a pretty good portion of the Big Bend area of Florida. Panama City under a tropical storm warning. And we have a storm surge warning in effect. And we just saw the updated numbers, and around southwest Florida, it could be potentially life-threatening. The forecast is calling for greater than a 9-foot above ground level storm surge here, possibly anywhere between 10 to 15 feet above ground level, especially around southwest Florida. Far southern Miami-Dade could see greater than a 3-foot storm surge above ground level, and the same for the upper Florida Keys. We move on into the lower Florida Keys, and it ranges anywhere between 3 to 6 feet above ground level, but they get a 1-2 punch. Their storm surge comes from the north side and the south side. So a lot of these islands around the island chain in the Florida Keys will be underwater, and the roadways will be impassable for quite some time. And it's all because of this major and large and powerful storm, Irma. I'll be back with another update in a few minutes.
All right, Viv, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Tiarmas with Diana Diaz.
Hi,
I know
everybody.
It's been a very busy day out there in South Florida. A lot of extreme weather. And the message here this morning is basically what you've been experiencing today or yesterday, Saturday, is what we can expect for the rest of today. It's Sunday morning. It's 4:06, and we're going to be here with you to continue walking you through this entire situation. We continue to track Hurricane Irma.
And as we continue, you know, I had a rare opportunity to drive here from down south. And I can tell you that it was really interesting to see I was the only person on the highway, aside from one police vehicle that I saw on the side of the road with lights on. And so that was comforting to see that everyone was heeding those warnings. Everybody right now is put in their homes and shelters or wherever they decided to ride out the storm. So that was really interesting to see. And also those residential areas, a lot of what I saw, trees down, those palm fronds, a lot of limbs. And then getting on the highway, for the most part, it was pretty clear. I saw a billboard that was torn up, and of course the squalls come in. But as you get closer to the coastline is when you really start seeing that weather change and the driving rain.
Right.
Further inland, there really is just a steady rain right now, and then just those strong winds. So a lot of you at home looking out your windows, and you're probably experiencing the same thing.
Right, and if you've been with us, you have seen our different reporters all around South Florida, and now we have a chance to check in with 7's Lorena Estrada. She's in Coconut Grove, and I can see a lot of wind so far there. Is it raining?
It is. Well, it actually stopped raining, but you know what would happen was it was never really pouring, but there were, you know, when we're getting these wind gusts, the rain, it just comes down hard. So it's almost like worse than pouring rain because it just smacks you in the face. And Alex, Diana, I have to tell you, I know Diana was mentioning she was driving from down south. You know, one thing we love about Coconut Grove is all of the beautiful trees. And I know Vivian mentioned earlier that some roads may be impassable because of all the debris on the ground. And already, you know, this thing's just getting started, and there were tree limbs covering the roadways. I shot some video of that. I posted that to social media. Also, power was out. Many folks here in Coconut Grove don't have power. I do have family and friends down in Palmetto Bay. They don't have power either. Here, we're at Dinner Key Marina, you know, where the avid boaters are. Just in case anyone at home is watching, perhaps your boat is here. We're at Pier 6. So far, everything is looking good. I have to tell you, the boats, they are rocking, but considering the wind gust that comes through here, I know that boaters made sure that they tie down those boats well. They say they use double the rope, and you know, this is their pride and joy. This is their babies. This is their second home for many of these folks. And the scary thing is that you know, everyone went home. They had to leave their boat here. They of course made sure that everything was taken off the boat. We've been watching our backs because every time that wind gust comes in, we of course advise everyone, you know, there may be things that go flying, so we do watch our backs. But I have to say, folks here, these boaters, these boat owners, seem like they did a really good job making sure they got everything out, they tied everything down. So we haven't seen any flying debris other than stop signs shaking. You know, that's one thing to look out for, to make sure it doesn't go flying. And of course, the trees. Coconut Grove, I can't emphasize that enough. That is something we love about the Grove here. But for the most part, right now, Alex, and it's actually calmed down just a bit, but I think this is what we're going to be expecting. It'll calm down, and then all of a sudden you have this wind gust and this rain that just kind of just smacks you, and it'll last for, you know, what feels like 20 to 30 seconds. And here we go, it's picking up again. So that's the one thing that we are watching out for. I have to agree with Diana. She was mentioning she drove to work. Nope, you know, there weren't any folks out on the roadways. Same thing, we didn't see anyone else out here, and that's because it is not safe. So we are certainly glad that folks are listening. You know, obviously when the sun comes up, that may be a time when people want to come and check out on the boat, but we urge, you know, folks, especially any boat owners here on Pier 6, if your boat is here, so far everything looks like it is under control. But the other scary thing too is we do hear this wind that just keeps swirling. It's almost like we're in this vacuum and we just hear it, and it's incredible to hear that noise and see the boats rocking, but they're only rocking very little. So we will of course be here monitoring the situation and see the different elements and what area, but we know that for the most part the wind, I did have to evacuate. I live on the beach, Sunny Isles Beach. I was staying in West Kendall. The wind was coming from the east of where my family's home was facing, and at one point, you know, we had the tornado warnings. That was really scary, by the way. I know we were all surprised to see that, from Broward to Dade County, and we could feel some of the wind bringing water through my family's front door. So I'm sure many people throughout South Florida are experiencing these situations, and what is scary is that it happens and then it stops. So I think moral of the story is we're going to be feeling that for several hours. So of course the advice is do not come outside. That's why we're here, to bring you and inform you of what it's looking like. And I can tell you, we do have to watch our backs because you just don't know what may be coming whenever that, you know, gust of wind comes this way. Alex, Diana?
And go ahead.
Oh, yes, Lorena, I was just going to ask you about those boats, because a lot of people will be very tempted to go out and check their property. But you've said for the most part, and you're right there on the water, Coconut Grove, an area that is getting blasted with those sheets of rain and then those squalls that come in. But for the most part, you can attest to the fact that the boats are surviving pretty well with very little damage, if at all, correct?
Correct. You know, you are looking at it right now. You know, check out this boat. You do see it rock back and forth. Of course, the wind right now is pretty calm. It has calmed down. Again, don't get it the wrong way. It is still very windy, but it's not that strong, 20-mile-per-hour wind that we've been seeing. But yes, we will be here keeping an eye on the boats. And that was my main concern, because sometimes, boats have these radars and these certain things. But for the most part, I have to say, folks seem like they did a really good job. But, when you are an avid boater, that is your baby. People are pretty particular when it comes to that. So I'm very sure that most people were as responsible as possible. They took all the necessary precautions to make sure that these boats are okay. And also the other thing is the boats are all lined up, really close together. So that may be another thing that's going to help them, stay in place. But the other thing, Diana, I mentioned, it is kind of crazy because you hear the wind swirling up above us and you see the boats rocking. But, compared to all the wind we're feeling, it's pretty incredible that they're pretty in place and so far so good. So again, if there are any boat owners here in Pier 6 and Dinner Key Marina, you can rest assured for now that things are okay. And as you mentioned, no, we don't want anyone to go and check out on anything. That is the beauty, I guess, of social media. That is one way I've been able to keep in touch with friends and family, friends who evacuated and went up north. That's how they've been in contact with their loved ones. As I mentioned, a lot of people in Coconut Grove are without power. Here, we still have some power. Here comes the wind. This is probably about 20-something mile-per-hour wind. I had the wind gauge with me earlier, so this is what happens a lot. It was so calm, and as I was talking to you all, I was surprised that it was so calm. So, but every now and then we get this just gust of wind, and this is what is bringing those tree limbs down. Diana, I know you mentioned that you saw them. At one point, some of the roadways are going to be pretty dangerous to cross. We were in an SUV, and it was still a little tough for us. So that's another reminder for folks. You don't want to go out exploring, especially in the dark, because there is no power in some of the roadways. And, particularly I can speak for the Grove area, which is the area we drove through.
All right, Lorena, thank you so much. We're going to check in with you in just a little bit. I see the winds picking up, and if you see behind us that radar, it's those outer bands. Lorena said it. It comes in, it goes, and it's an on and off, and you really never know when those bands are going to come to your area, unless you're looking at the radar, which of course, is not always the opportunity. So Lorena, we'll check in with you in just a moment. Right now, we do have the opportunity to go to Chip Casper with the National Weather Service. He's in the Keys right now, in Key West. And Viv mentioned just a short time ago that the Keys, the lower Keys and Key West, already experiencing those hurricane force winds we have been talking about. Hurricane Irma, Mr. Casper, is a Category 4 storm right now. You are actually the first opportunity, this is the first opportunity we get to speak to anybody in Key West since this storm came in. What is it like right now?
And once again, we have Chip Casper on the phone with us with the National Weather Service out of Key West, making sure that he is on the line. And once again, we can tell you that those bands are coming through. Chip, can you hear us? Apparently, we're having audio difficulties there. We can tell you, though, and updating you that they are expecting to feel hurricane storm force winds there. And once again, the Keys, especially the lower Keys, have been such a focus for us here because of that path that you've been talking about, Alex, and that it is, difficult to get the opportunity to speak with those right now in Key West. We'll get back to that phone call in a moment because of those gusts that come through. Yeah, the service there must not be good, but we will check in with him. Katrina Bush, she's in downtown. We can check in with her, though, and see what it's like over there right now. I see some flooding behind you already, Katrina.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what? The rain has lightened up a little bit in the last few minutes, but the wind has really picked up. And as Lorena was just saying, of course, we are seeing it in these strong gusts, which we are experiencing right now. And we have a few gauges to kind of see when it picks up. So not only are we looking out at the palm trees, and you can see how much those are blowing in the wind there here along Biscayne Boulevard at East Flagler Street, but we're also, it's hard to see from here, but we can hear a sign under the metro rail there just banging up against a pole. Once that wind picks up, we are hearing that just loud metal against metal noise there. Another gauge, as you said there, Alex, you're pointing out the water here. We are seeing Biscayne Boulevard flooded. I'm standing on the sidewalk. You can see how much water is here on the sidewalk. And if I just step out onto the road, you can see how deep it is, and then at times it's just the wind is just blowing it here down the road, and we're seeing a little bit of wind damage. So take a look at this tree here. We're right by the Intercontinental. A couple of trees here actually have been snapped basically right there at the root and are laying there in the street. So we're keeping an eye on these trees in the area and see how they hold up in these conditions. Just over the last 24 hours, so I did have a chance to get some rest, but I've been watching the coverage, and it's been interesting, at least for me, to see when we first started out seeing these feeder bands coming in and before they even started hitting our area, to see what it was like out here, and then now comparing it to what we are seeing right now, although it's been in different areas, and seeing how these conditions have evolved and deteriorated. So we are feeling this wind gust, that wind gust just kind of slowing down a little bit right now. But I can tell you also, just driving over here, I know everyone's been saying it as we've had this next shift come in to relieve our crews, driving on 95 South. We didn't see anyone else. I did just see a patrol car drive down the street. We saw one other news crew on the way, but other than that, it was just us headed in, and we don't see anyone down here either. But it has been nice to still see some of these buildings lit up, so it's not completely dark here. The traffic lights still functioning right now. That's what it's looking like down in downtown Miami. Back to you guys.
How deep the flooding is behind you? Did you take a look at all?
Say it again.
Were you able to see how deep that water is? It seems like it's only a few, like pockets almost, right?
Right. I'll step over again and just, so we see it came up onto the sidewalk, maybe just an inch or two, but once you step down onto the street, I don't know, about 6 inches, 7 inches, it's pretty deep. And so it's not quite covering all of Biscayne Boulevard across the whole way. It's covering just about 1.5 lanes, but then as we look further down, if we swing back around south, you can see it's pretty much covering the entire width of Biscayne Boulevard. But yeah, we'll kind of keep an eye on this and see if these water levels are going up.
And Katrina Bush reporting for us in downtown Miami. As you look at those live pictures, that looks to be primarily from the rain and not so much from the storm surge and the conditions that are expected in the lower Keys later on in the day. And once again, we are set to speak to an official from Key West.
We're still having some trouble getting in contact with him. We know our producers are still trying to get in contact with Mr. Chip Casper with the National Weather Service. He's in Key West. This is going to be our first opportunity to hear what it's actually like there. So we're still waiting on that. In the meantime, 7's Mike DePasquale has more from Davie now. Weather going through there too, severe weather. He has a look at the damage so far.
We're in the area of Sterling University in Davie, and look what the wind gust did. There was no confirmed tornado in this area, but this tree was uprooted. It took out the sidewalk, and you can just see how deep these roots are. So the entire weight of it, the wind blew this tree over. We're going to walk over on this side to give you an idea of how big this tree is across the entire street. And there are homes on the other side. And the most ironic thing, and we tried to see if anybody was home, and no one is home at this point, and including the person in this house. But the tree stops short of hitting this house, and there's a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary right in front of the house. That's where the tree stopped from nearly hitting this house. In Davie, Mike DePasquale, 7 News.
All right, we have some information to pass along to you. A tweet that came in just a short time ago. And this is saying, everyone, again, we're trying to keep hammering home how dangerous Irma is for those that remain in the Keys. This is official from the Weather Center in the Keys. Once again, Irma is a large and potentially catastrophic hurricane. Everyone in the Florida Keys needs to remain indoors. This is from the National Weather Service. Again, in the Florida Keys, this is a concern. And then this tweet coming through to make sure everyone is aware. Once again, it goes on to say, hunker down in an interior room away from windows. Make sure you have proper footwear on now.
Imagine, this tweet goes on to say, we want people to know to use whatever they have to try to protect themselves while they shelter. This is a tweet directly from the National Weather Service. Meteorologist Viv Gonzalez is here to give us this tweet.
And you know what? We have information now that coming in, and we're going to hear it straight from the officials themselves. Let's go ahead and get to Chip Casper from the National Weather Service, and you're the ones who released that information. Tell us more what it is that you want to drive home for folks who are right now riding out this storm at home.
Yes, for the people left in the Florida Keys that did not evacuate, now is the time to hunker down, stay where you're at, do not go outside, protect yourself as best as you can. It's not safe to be outside. We have the core of a Category 4 major hurricane about to make landfall in the next few hours here in the Florida Keys. It's a very large and dangerous hurricane with the potential to create a lot of damage from not only the wind, but rising water. In fact, we are getting reports and seeing that the storm surge flooding has begun. So the waters are rising, and that will continue to happen throughout this morning and into the afternoon.
All right, Mr. Casper, can you describe, where are you right now exactly? Are you, I'm sure you're in a safe place.
Yes, I'm at our facility in Key West, Florida. We have a structure that was specifically designed and built to withstand a Category 5 rated hurricane. It's fortified and elevated, and that was done by the taxpayers through NOAA and the National Weather Service so that our staff could be here safe and sound to basically conduct our mission of protecting lives and property and keeping the citizens and visitors to the Florida Keys safe and helping support the public officials that ensure their safety.
And can you talk about the conditions that are expected in the next few hours for the folks in the Keys?
Yes, we're going to see conditions that are extreme by any measure in terms of weather. We're going to have damaging, violent wind gusts. We're already seeing hurricane force wind gusts in the Keys. We just had a wind gust here at the office of 84 miles an hour, and we saw some wind gusts in the 90s as well further up the islands. So we're going to see damaging winds. In addition, there's driving torrents of rain. So the rain is basically blowing horizontal with those damaging winds. And on top of all that, we're going to see the storm surge flooding increase. And, you know, the storm surge is really the most deadly hurricane hazard through history. Most people who drown in hurricanes do so by drowning, unfortunately. And so we're very concerned. We could expect, at a worst-case scenario, anywhere from 5 to 10 feet of water above the ground.
Mr. Casper, all week long, we have heard different officials from everywhere urging people to stay inside, especially there in the Keys. This is the moment that they were warning about. This is the moment that they were concerned about. Can you please just stress again, for the very few people that are still there who did not want to evacuate, how important it is to just stay inside? Because this right here is extremely dangerous.
Well, literally your life can depend on it. It's dangerous outside. You don't want to be outside. There's objects that get thrown into the air with those hurricane force winds. So, you know, there's basically flying missiles in the air with this kind of situation. Yeah, you stay where you're at, indoors, hunker down, protect yourself the best you can. Wear shoes, get some appropriate footwear so you don't injure yourself on broken glass or anything like that. And, you know, it's going to be a while. These hurricane force winds are going to last well into the afternoon hours. And so it's not going to be easy, but hang in there, hunker down, and hopefully you can get through this.
All right, Chip, and on that note, of course, people, the next obvious question are wondering is, well, when can we go out and check our property and see if it's safe to go out again? You had mentioned into the afternoon. If you could be specific for those listening in the Florida Keys, especially Key West, a time frame when you believe it may be safe to be able to venture back out to maybe start checking on property.
Well, it looks like the best estimate for the end of the hurricane force sustained winds would probably be somewhere in the mid to late afternoon, 2 to 5 o'clock maybe. But then the tropical storm force sustained winds will still be here, and it'll take pretty much most of the night, most of tonight, for those to subside finally below tropical storm force, perhaps right around daybreak on Monday. And then, of course, after that, we expect widespread damage and destruction from this storm, and there's a lot of hazardous conditions that can result just from debris and down power lines and things like that. So, people really need to be wary before they just start walking outside.
Mr. Casper, one more question for you. I know you said you're in a very safe facility, but have you had the chance to peek outside, or have you gotten any footage, any calls about the damage so far there? If there's any way you can describe the scene at all?
Yeah, I did get a chance a little while ago to peek through the hurricane glass, and the flags were really ripping and snapping, and you could see a lot of vegetation, a lot of kind of tree branches strewn about, driving rain, horizontal rain, just not a pleasant scene. But we're expecting the worst of it yet to come. So really the core of the hurricane is really where the worst conditions are, and that is coming toward us right now, and should the worst of it should begin here in the next let's say 3 to 4 hours.
And Chip, can you describe what people are going to be experiencing in those next few hours as they sit in their homes and hunker down and wait for this to pass by?
Well, yeah, the wind is just going to be very violent and loud, deafening, and shaking, and hearing all kinds of sounds. And that's where you just want to get to that interior room, hopefully have shutters up, hopefully you're on high ground, and just protect yourself from any opening. Hopefully there's none, but you really need to. It's almost like a tornado at that point. You just have to really protect yourself. The rain is just driving in torrential, and we're going to get probably 10 to 20 inches of rain out of this. But that's really not the thing that we're most concerned about. As bad as that is, the storm surge flooding, where you're actually having the water level rises. That's a very big concern.
Okay, I know we said one more question, but we're filled with questions over here. Imagine this is the first time we got to speak to anyone where you're at. The eye of the storm, you said that it's soon approaching. Any estimate as to how long it'll take for the eye of the storm to actually make landfall there in Key West?
Well, the storm is not moving all that fast. I think we have it at moving northwest at about 6 miles an hour as of the latest advisory. And so it's going to take a while. Like I said before, this is not something that's going to be over in an hour or 2 hours. We're going to have sustained hurricane force winds for several hours into the 12 to 15 hours. And so this is one of the reasons why people just need to really hunker down, stay where you're at, stay safe, protect yourself, protect the people with you, and please don't venture outside. Don't put your life at risk.
All right, Chip Casper on the phone with us from the National Weather Service in Key West. We appreciate your time, and of course hope that you and your staff there remain safe. And once again, they are in a very secure building, and appreciate the fact that they continue to put out information and left their own families in order to keep us all safe. So appreciate that.
All right, so that's Key West. Obviously, that is where the eye will be making landfall in a few hours, as you heard. But everyone else outside from there, all of the rest of South Florida, you're feeling the effects. Yesterday we were talking about, don't worry about the cone, don't worry about the cone, we're all going to feel it. Well, here it is, and now we know this for a fact. The conditions spread across South Florida.
They did. And, for those of you at home who have been in your houses and have those impact-resistant windows and looking out, you have the vantage point of what Omar Lewis has been describing is those trees down, the palm fronds, and some flooding in some areas. But for those who have all the plywood up and the shutters and it's dark inside and maybe don't have the ability to see, Omar, what are you describing there in Miami? What are you seeing out there?
Diana and Alex, we are in Midtown, the Midtown neighborhood here in Miami. And as you were saying all morning long, just because this hurricane has shifted to our west does not mean that we are out of danger here in Miami. And so taking a look at these wind gusts, you can see these palm fronds and these palm trees whipping in the wind. And this wind is really creating projectiles that we've been seeing flying down the streets. And taking a look at this building, for example, you can see how they have hurricane impact windows, and folks in there there are inside these buildings, some of them, and you really can't hear or know what's going on outside because those impact windows are so strong. However, once you step outside, you see that is very real out here. We have seen downed trees here in this neighborhood, again, in Miami, Midtown Miami, Edgewater neighborhood. And taking a look right back there, you see that crane off in the distance. And that is something that the city of Miami officials have been telling people to be wary about. These cranes, there are more than 20 of them here in downtown Miami, and they are kind of blowing in the wind. This one's stationary right now, but earlier when we first got here, it was swinging around in a clockwise direction, and they did leave them loose so that they were flexible to move. But when you see that, these cranes, these very large cranes whipping around in the wind, you know just how strong these winds really are. And I want to kind of flip you around and show you the situation here. You're looking at, off in the distance here, the Biscayne Bay, and this is the pool here at the condominium, and taking a look at the palm fronds again, whipping in the wind. And actually, from the bay, we have been seeing the impacts of that storm surge that folks have been talking about, the water coming in onto these streets, and that's also causing other issues, as you can imagine. So a very dangerous situation outside right now. You can take a look at this building right here, a little bit older to our left here, and see that they have their shutters up. Not many folks deciding to stay in that building because it is right here on the bay, but some of these newer buildings you can see, and just right here from where we are, if we can take a look around, it's very dangerous to be outside. Some things just falling down as you're walking here. So we are, of course, are being very cautious as to where we are and our vantage point, but things are just kind of blowing around, unstable in certain locations. We're kind of positioned to where we're kind of in between some walls. However, but you can tell out there, dangerous conditions because of all of this wind, the rain kind of dying down at this point, but the wind, the major concern here as folks are inside their homes kind of sheltering. And we do want to emphasize that you do not want to walk outside because you never know what you're going to get. And again, just because the storm has moved to our west does not mean that we are out of danger as far as the wind concerns. So we're going to send it back to you, ladies.
And that's really important to remember, as Omar just mentioned, the wind, because we had a lot of those tornadoes move through, especially in Broward County yesterday.
And that was scary because these tornado warnings and watches would come and they would go, and then people would call and text me saying, is it lifted, is it not? And it's truthfully, it comes, it goes, and that's just how it is. So you have to be on your toes at all times. We now have the chance to speak to Vanessa Medina. She is calling us in from Delray Beach. And Vanessa, the scene right there from this this camera from I-95, I believe, and Sunrise is pretty bad. How's it like in Delray Beach right now?
Well, ladies, just so you get an idea, I'm just north of Boca Raton, East Delray Beach, and we just went through a tornado warning, and just the sounds and the howling noises outside. My windows are extremely, it's pretty powerful when you just, I'm inside, I can see out because I have hurricane resistant, impact resistant windows, and it's just amazing to think, you know, this is all Mother Nature. If this is what we're seeing up here during, you know, these outer bands, and I'm in the middle of one of those outer bands right now that's going to stay over where I am for a while. If this is what we're seeing here, and this is so far from Irma's core, you know, from that eyewall, it's incredible to think what the Keys will be seeing at 130 mile per hour winds or so. But like I said, we just got out of a tornado warning, and it was loud, and there was a lot of howling wind, and you could hear trees snapping. You know, I was on the other shift, and so on my drive home, I was on 95, and I had to pull over several times because it was just a white wall. It was raining so hard, and the wind was so powerful. I could feel my car, you know, moving along, being moved by the wind. So I had to pull over, and once I finally got off the highway, there was just trees everywhere. And it was a short drive from the highway, and there was just trees down on the road. So very dangerous out there, if people, once the sun comes up and people just see wind, or they have to really understand that these bands are coming and going, and once they venture outside of their homes, don't do it because it's not the safest conditions. You can't see a foot or so beyond your car. At one point, I had to put my high beams on, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see lights where I knew there were lights, and so just wanting to tell people out there just to, be careful, stay inside your homes, and just giving you an update as to what's going on here. But just the howling noise from being inside of a home is just incredible to hear, and you're just kind of watching and waiting to see what happens, and you're on pins and needles, and knowing that you're in a tornado warning, waiting for that to pass so you feel a little safer. But throughout, while I was reporting, there was tornado warnings, and people were taking shelter and taking cover, and it's just, it's going to be a very long process. We're going to be going through this for the next, 20 plus hours or so. So it's a very large storm. We knew that going into this, and so it's going to take quite a while before Irma, is done with South Florida, and those outer bands are done with the eastern side of the state, the southeastern side as well. So that's the latest here in Delray Beach. Back to you guys.
And Vanessa, compared to what you experienced yesterday to the conditions that you've seen overnight, how would you say it compares? Because, again, it was very scary for so many people living in those areas where those tornadoes started appearing. Would you say that, for the most part, it's been consistent since then?
Well, it's like what most of the reporters are saying. It comes and goes, and what I'm seeing here is it's just a constant, swirling and the howling of the wind. And so, you're inside. I can see what's going on outside, and it's pretty frightening to see, just how ferocious Mother Nature can be. And, you spend so much time in your home, you feel protected, but when stuff like this happens, that you're really not in control of what's going to happen. That's what's so scary for people being inside, especially if they have shutters up or plywood. You can hear it. I mean, it hits the roof. There's tree limbs going down. You can hear that noise, and you don't know what's coming at you, and that's the scary part in all of this, and especially knowing that this is going to be going on for 20 plus hours throughout the duration of the day. I mean, right now, like I said, I'm in one of those outer bands that's expected to stay over this area, southeastern Palm Beach County, Boca Raton, Delray Beach, for quite some time, and so I'm expecting to hear this howling and the noise, and for a bit. And so yesterday, while I was out reporting, it was quiet for a while, and I was thinking, oh, this is great. It's not going to be so bad. And that's the thing. You let your guard down for a second, and then just getting in my car and driving. I literally drove through a band. It was not hitting me when I was in Deerfield Beach reporting, but as soon as I drove out and I drove through, it was just a white wall, and the wind and the rain, and was quite powerful. So I say, it comes, as you can see it, it's like the fingers, on the radar. And every time one of those fingers goes over the area where you're at, you're going to get that nasty pounding for some time, and then it goes away until the next finger or the next band comes across the area where you're at. But just to be inside and hear just what's going on outside, it's amazing to think that a couple 100 miles away in Key West, it's what they must be going through must be incredible. So, we watch, we wait, and we hope and pray for the best,
All right, Vanessa Medina, live in Delray Beach, thank you so much for that report. We now want to bring you an urgent message from Key West. If we can show you that. This is from the National Weather Service in Key West. A short time ago, we spoke with Mr. Chip Casper with that National Weather Service. And this doesn't look like a tweet, but I have it here. And the tweet reads, "It is time to hunker down. The worst winds are yet to come." This echoes on what Mr. Casper was talking about just a short time ago. This is the time we have been talking about. It has been days and days of us warning you, of officials, meteorologists warning you that these are strong winds, a monster storm, dangerous, deadly. This is the moment. It's happening. It's here. Key West, this is directly to you. If there's anyone there, the officials are urging you, hunker down and stay safe.
All right, so I want to take you through what it is that they have released to everyone in the Florida Keys. It says, don't go outside, shelter in place. I'm having a hard time reading this. Let's see. It also goes on to say quite a few things. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what they're advising people. Basically, to stay put. This is going to be a catastrophic event, is what they said. They also want people to, they talked about footwear. When we spoke to the official from the National Weather Service, he was talking more about indoors because they don't want people to get injured while they're indoors because, of course, they're not going to have first responders be able to go to you and get to you if anything does happen. Apparently, they've had some issues with that. Now that the full screen's a little larger, we can go through what the tweet said.
It keeps on going, and it says, get to an interior room away from windows. Very important. As Diana mentioned, put your shoes on now. And lastly, use whatever you have to try to protect yourself from flying debris, such as pillows, blankets, helmets, mattresses, whatever it is. Stay away from the windows, Diana. Wear those shoes. Get whatever you can to protect yourself in case something is picked up by these very strong hurricane force winds and breaks one of your windows if you don't have those shutters.
And that is for people that are in the Keys that did not board up. Once again, and they apparently know that there are those individuals out there, if you're listening on the radio and don't have power, and thank goodness for our simulcast partners. And much of that information I know that I used yesterday is I was trying to get from point A to point B, and all those tornado warnings were in place. The bottom of it is the most important part, by the way. If you are listening in Key West right now in the Florida Keys, it says the worst is yet to come. The intense winds associated with the eyewall are expected to arrive around 7 a.m. in the lower Keys. We're about just over 2 hours from that point, so they just want everyone to be prepared as it comes through.
All right, we now have a chance to go to 7's Andrew Scheinthal. We're moving up a little bit up north to South Miami-Dade. I believe Andrew may be available. Andrew, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Andrew, hey, what's going on there? Where exactly are you? I know you're in South Miami-Dade. Any specific location?
Yes, we're at South Miami-Dade Middle School right now. We got here around 10 o'clock or so last night, and when we first got here, conditions really were not that bad. It was raining, it was windy, of course, kind of like it is everywhere right now, but it wasn't anything that was too severe outside. It didn't seem like anything was too much was going on. But now, several hours later, the weather has certainly picked up, and it's very clear that this is all about the wind. It has been raining. Sometimes it's raining harder times than others, but the one thing that has not let down is the wind. And we're sitting in the car right now, and I'm watching through the window, and you see these trees that are swaying around as if, someone is just shaking them violently. And at any point, you're just kind of watching it, waiting for tree limbs to constantly snap off, and you don't know when that's going to happen. And you just kind of sit here, hope, and pray that when it does break off, it doesn't come flying in your direction. So that's why the wind out here is such a cause for concern, is because you don't know what is going to eventually come headed flying towards you. We also look at the street signs, and those are shaking violently, and that kind of concerns me more than the trees do, because you just kind of anticipate this massive stop sign coming in and flying towards you. So luckily, we're parked right next along the side of the building near all the National Guard vehicles. We feel pretty safe where we are right here, but you just see things flying around outside, and you don't know what it is because it's so dark. Around 2 o'clock or so was the first time the lights flickered around us going off, and they instantly came back on. And it happened like that for several hours, and then around 4:30 or so, 4:15, 4:30, the lights just went off, and they haven't come back on since. Now, there is a generator here at the school, I would assume, because some of the lights at the school are on, but all the street lights are off. Neighboring lights at the homes near we are are all off. And then the other thing we're seeing out here are these blasts of green light, which I can only assume are those transformers that are blowing, and it is literally one after another. And I would say every 2 to 3 minutes you just see this flash of light. And at first I thought it was lightning and couldn't understand why the lightning was green, but then it just started, kind of making sense that that's what was happening after we saw those videos on social media of those transformers blowing and that light it emits. So, I mean, these are the conditions that we've been talking about for so long. And, don't be fooled. Irma is certainly here, and the effects of the storm are certainly being felt. And the other thing we're hearing is every once in a while, and I don't know if this is the wind, I don't know if it's a possible tornado, but every once in a while you hear that eerie sound that everyone describes of what sounds like a train. And where we are, the longest stretch we heard it was for about 4 to 5 seconds. And, you're just kind of sitting here idly for a little bit, trying to maybe catch a little bit of sleep. And all of a sudden you just jump up because you hear that sound and you think, yep, and right there I just saw another transformer go. But you hear that sound and you think, oh my God, okay, what is that? Because it really does sound like that train that so many people describe. And so, like I said, it's only lasted 4 or 5 seconds. I don't know if it's just the wind, it's just getting extremely strong, those gusts of winds that come through, or if it's something else. But, I'm not getting out of this car anytime soon, I'll tell you that. So we're just going to stay out here and monitor all this. But these are the conditions people have been talking about. We haven't seen anyone outside. And right now I'm looking at the sky, and it is just glowing green. I mean, it is absolutely incredible to think how many transformers are just exploding right now. It's incredible.
We appreciate that and want to get to some new information. Please stay safe out there. Andrew from the Weather Center and 7's Vivian Gonzalez. Viv?
That's right. We have a flood warning now for southeastern Miami-Dade, southeastern Broward County, and other parts of South Florida, including Collier, mainland Monroe, and also Henry County until 4:45 this afternoon. And we are talking about 6 to 8 inches of rain have already fallen in the warning area. And this is all due to the outer bands of Irma, but the excessive rainfall is going to continue to lead to flood concerns around all of South Florida. And the impacts include major flooding with numerous impassable and closed roads and inundation of structures too because of the consistent rain that continues to fall. These are just some of the radar estimates that we have, rain estimates in Key Biscayne, about 8.5 inches or close to 8.5 inches. In Miami, a little over 4 inches of rain, and in Miramar we have reported close to 3 inches of rain. But again, we have a flood warning in effect until 4:45 this afternoon. 6 to 8 inches of rain have already fallen around these locations. But check it out, heavy downpours, a cluster of storms right now moving into Boca Raton and parts of northeastern Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. Soon you're going to start to see some heavy showers and strong storms moving through coastal areas, but this stretches well inland. We move into Miami-Dade County and around sections of Hialeah, Doral, seeing heavy rain around the Florida Turnpike too, even around Okeechobee Road into Miami Lakes. Moving into downtown Miami, we're seeing consistent rain, and this extends into Southwest H Street, Tamiami Trail, West Flagler, even Kendall Lakes along the Florida Turnpike. As far south as Homestead at this hour, and these are all of the outer bands of Irma pushing onshore, producing these strong to severe type conditions across the area. We've also been dealing with tornado concerns, but again, the outer bands of Irma definitely impacting all of South Florida. And here is the center of the storm closing in on the lower Florida Keys. In fact, the most intense winds with the eyewall will be approaching the lower Florida Keys at around 7 o'clock this morning. Definitely a powerful and large system, and we're feeling the effects as a result. And we do have that flood warning once again in effect until 4:45 this afternoon, and it's all around this area highlighted in green. We have that flood warning until 4:45. There's also for other areas around South Florida flash flood watch in effect, especially for Palm Beach County until 8 o'clock tonight. And until Monday in the evening, we do have a flash flood watch in effect. There are other warnings that are in place because of Irma, hurricane conditions possible in this warning area throughout the day, and that is why this warning is in effect, and it extends as far north as Jacksonville into the Big Bend area of Florida, parts of the Panhandle under a tropical storm warning. We also have a storm surge warning along both coasts, and this only extends now to Miami-Dade County, not Broward County, but it's not to say that storm surge not possible around these locations, but a 1 to 3 foot storm surge possible here. The Florida Keys, significant life-threatening storm surge possible for them, and it gets enhanced during times of high tide. Lauderdale by the Sea, your next high tide 11:39 in the morning. Fort Lauderdale 12:41 in the afternoon, and Hollywood Beach 103. Now, as far as storm surge potential around southwest Florida, this area highlighted in red, you could see a greater than 9 foot above ground level storm surge. The forecast calling for a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. For the lower Florida Keys, we are talking about a 3 to even 6 foot storm surge above ground level, but they get a 1-2 punch. They get a storm surge from the north side and from the south side. So certainly a very serious and deadly situation underway for the Florida Keys. That's the very latest. Sending it back to you, ladies.
Viv, let me ask you a quick question. You just said a very dangerous situation for the Florida Keys. That eyewall is expected to land in Key West at about 7 o'clock this morning. That's about 2 hours. About 2 hours from now. You have been mentioning all week that those hurricane force winds extend about 70 miles from the eye. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. So they are already starting to feel the hurricane force winds. We've been getting several reports coming into the weather office of major wind gust reports already from Key West, several locations there. But the most intense hurricane force winds, we're talking about 130 miles per hour winds associated with the outer eyewall of Irma, will be approaching these locations at about 7 o'clock this morning. So yes, Key West, definitely you're going to be getting the brunt of this activity stretching into the 7 Mile Bridge and even Marathon. But we have several reports. Cudjoe Key at 5:16 this morning reporting a tropical storm force wind. Around Middle Torch Key around 5:15 this morning reporting tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force wind gusts, especially around Big Coppic Key at 9:40 last night. So several reports have been coming in because of the strong winds associated with the outer bands of Irma. But again, the most intense part of the storm, the eyewall, where we have the most intense winds, will be approaching Key West roughly 5:41 this morning, definitely moving through the area around 7 o'clock.
All right, Viv, and of course, the lower Keys not the only ones feeling those effects, as we've been telling you right now, all the way into Broward County, even though, like you just mentioned, that they may not be in that pink zone. We're getting information of a tropical storm wind gust of 60 miles per hour. This was recorded at the Broward County School Tech and Support. Talk about people all the way up into Broward County for a moment.
That is why it's so important not to focus on that line in the middle of the forecast cone or the shaded area. That's where the actual center will go. But we are on the eastern quadrant of the storm, the dirty sector, what's known as the dirty sector, which is the second most dangerous part of a hurricane. And that is why we've been getting this type of weather moving into the area. And we are going to continue to see squally weather moving in and out. And right now on the local storm tracking radar, we do have some very strong storms sitting offshore. These are capable of producing those strong winds. In fact, this is booking quickly towards the northwest, anywhere between 25 to 30 miles per hour. But of course, we have several storm reports to talk about. Tropical storm force winds being reported, like you said, in Broward County. That was around 4:22 in the afternoon, 9:30 in the evening. Another tropical storm force wind report to talk about. But remember, we are going to be seeing lots of rain falling in the region, especially in Broward County, stretching inland, where we have a moderate to heavy rain. And as we zoom on a little bit closer towards parts of Miami-Dade, Okeechobee Road also getting drenched right now. We're talking about the 826, 836, the Dolphin Expressway, 441, Southwest 8th Street, Flagler Street. This is where we're seeing consistent rain falling and several storm reports of straight line winds, some damage, and possible tornadoes around the area. But Kendall Lakes as well dealing with quite a bit of activity as far as rain is concerned. But again, I want to reiterate that we do have a flood warning in effect for parts of Broward and Miami-Dade until 4:45 this afternoon.
And Viv, I just drove through that 826 area all the way through as I was coming up from down south, and what you said is so true. Now, the good news is no one else was on the roadways except for me and one other emergency vehicle, but that's exactly what you're seeing out there on the highways in those areas of driving wind. For the most part, all of a sudden it's calm, and then you get that going, and right now it's continuous, it looks like, right, Viv?
That's right. It's going to be on and off. So with those bands moving in, we're going to be seeing some strong storms, gusty winds. So it's not wise to be out on the roads. You don't want to be caught in this type of activity out there. It just makes driving conditions very dangerous, and you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So it's best to just ride out the storm right now at home. Even though we're not getting directly impacted from Irma, we are feeling its effects, and it's going to be long lasting because as the center moves through the Florida Keys, it's going to be approaching or moving over the west coast of Florida as a whole. So we're still going to be feeling the rain. We're still going to be feeling the strong winds moving through the area. And right now the radar showing that the eye is closing in on the lower Florida Keys.
And that touchdown, that landfall, that eyewall is expected at about 7 o'clock this morning. And Viv, I have another question. As of last check, I know that the coastal areas in Broward, their storm surge warning or concern was lifted about a few hours ago, but Miami-Dade is still having have to worry about storm surge and the Keys, of course. Can you explain, because I know a lot of people are asking, what is storm surge? Can you explain how that all works and
storm surge and the Keys, of course. Can you explain, because I know a lot of people are asking, what is storm surge? Can you explain how that all works and how it ends up being just flooding? In other words?
Right. Whenever we're under a warning, it means that the danger is likely for the combination of the dangerous storm surge and the tide to cause the water levels to rise along the coast. And then
ain't nobody been on nothing live yet.
25 worsens during times of high tide, where we tend to see more flooding out on the roadways and around the immediate coastline. But yes, a storm surge warning means that the danger of life-threatening storm surge is possible. Now, here's a storm surge graphic just to show you that the area highlighted in red here, and it stretches from parts of Bonita Springs, Naples, Marco Island, all the way to mainland and Monroe coastline. They can see a greater than 9-foot storm surge above ground level. The Florida Keys, we're talking about 3 to 6 foot storm surge above ground level, but the forecast is calling 10 to 15 feet, especially around southwest of Florida. And around parts of Miami-Dade under the warning about
that the coastal Broward County won't see additional storm surge throughout today. A 1 to 3 foot storm surge possible for them, and we've already been seeing some pictures of and footage from our reporters out reporting that the water is slowly rising out on the roadways, especially around close to Bayside and Miami Shores. Well, that's storm surge, and it's been ongoing for quite some time.
All right, and Viv is getting some information right now as that new advisory came in. Viv, we're also getting some information from Rick Scott talking about the storm surge. He tweeted out saying life-threatening storm surge is occurring now in the Keys and is expected to begin in the morning in southwest Florida.
And that is totally correct. And we already have the 5 o'clock advisory, Category 4 system, moving to the northwest at 8 miles per hour. So it's trying to pick up a little bit in forward speed, but the winds remain the same, 130 miles per hour. And it's located 40 miles to the south-southeast of Key West, Florida. So yes, this dangerous hurricane Irma is already closing in on the Florida Keys, but nothing has changed. It's still a very intense, large, powerful hurricane. And the eyewall, the most intense storms and winds associated with Irma are already going to be closing in on the Keys at around 7 o'clock this morning. That's what's going to be moving through the area. The satellite picture definitely showing that it's a well-organized hurricane and gaining strength, re-intensifying over the Florida Straits. The eye is starting to be more visible on the satellite picture, but the outer band stretches far north as north and central Florida. So here's the forecast track to show you a good close-up view of the cone, that it will be passing through the lower Florida Keys by 8 o'clock this morning, and then the center be over or near the west coast of Florida sometime this afternoon with 130-mile-per-hour winds, possibly making landfall close to Tampa and Sarasota. Definitely a serious situation for them down the road going into Monday, and then moving through the Big Bend area of Florida, hopefully falling apart, raining itself out around parts of the Mississippi Valley, Ohio River Valley down the road. But there is a hurricane warning in effect for South Florida for hurricane conditions likely throughout today. So definitely heed the warnings out there, especially in Tampa and Orlando, Daytona Beach, Jacksonville. They are under the warning and likely to experience the wrath of Irma basically as they go into Monday.
All right, Viv, thank you so much for that. Of course, here in our area, we're experiencing a lot of strong winds as those squalls move through all across, and of course that's causing power outages all throughout our area. FPL crews have been out. I know for my part at my house overnight, it would go off and then somehow come back on. We spoke to FPL crews overnight. They said that they have a system where they're able to identify rather quickly where something has gone out and then reroute power to that area. As you see crews out there overnight taking care of those situations throughout our county.
Yeah, they're out there. This is video that was shot overnight of these crew members, like Diana was mentioning, to fix what we're going to show you next. We have video of these transformers blowing all around South Florida. This right here, this is in Pinecrest. It looks like fireworks, but I can reassure you these are not fireworks. These are power lines sparking, going out, causing all those power outages. The wind outside, the rain outside, not helping with the situation. We have seen transformers as they blow out in, let's say, Miami, Coral Gables. This one in particular, I believe, is in along Northeast 2nd Avenue in Miami and 45th through 50th Street. And you can see that middle in the middle part of your screen, those little sparks, those are the transformers. And you notice the area around it completely black. Those are homes, apartments, buildings now without power because of those transformers blowing. And then you see the surrounding areas with light. So when you're talking about these power outages, Diana, they're pockets, they're little areas. And again, you don't know when they're coming. You don't know. But like you said, the crew members are out there ready to respond as soon as those winds are safe enough to work in.
And you don't know until you're in that area and you hear it. If you've ever experienced what it is to have a transformer blow, it's that huge light, that blue light that goes off, and that sound. And as you're looking at the numbers right here, these are the people that have been affected by those power outages and those blown transformers. 164,590 people in Miami-Dade County, nearly 165,000 people. These are the highest numbers of outages that we've had so far. In Broward, 74,870, and in Palm Beach, nearly 22,000 people right now without power as Florida Power and Light crews go out throughout our neighborhoods. And also, once again, the grid tries to reroute power to those areas. And a lot of people wondering, do I have to call? Do I have to let them know that my power is out? For the most part, Florida Power and Light officials say we already know. So in case you don't have that opportunity to call, they're going to be on it.
And then to add on top of that, the Keys, as we've been mentioning, they're getting the worst of it right now. And I want to add the power company that supplies power to Key West and the lower Keys, they tweeted out overnight that 14,000 Keys customers out of 29,000 are currently without power. And obviously, you know that that's going to be the situation when we're telling you that this hurricane is about to make landfall in Key West. So overall, a lot of people without power. These conditions spread across South Florida, as you know. Hollywood, no exception.
No, and let's take you to Chris Van Vliet with a look around there.
Well, we've been here in Hollywood Beach all throughout the night. We got here before the sun set, and we've
watch these conditions get increasingly worse. We're hunkered down right now inside a parking garage because there's lightning all around us right now. A severe band is rolling through here. We'll walk out to the edge here. I know our lens is a little bit fogged up, but we'll walk out to the lens here and just kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. Yeah, it's a parking garage, but rain is ripping right through here, all the way through. It's certainly not dry at all. And as we come to the edge here, you can see that wind very strong. Those palm trees are certainly feeling those effects, and that rain is coming in horizontally. And you can see inside the parking garage here, you know, these are the very helpful lights that show you which parking spots are available. Green when there's a spot available, red when there isn't a spot available, and they're rocking. You know what else is rocking? These cars are, they're bouncing up and down, really giving those shocks a workout. The whole parking garage is filled with cars. These are people who, you know, obviously have street parking here in Hollywood Beach. Wow, it's this big gust coming in here, and me and my photographer Mandy just trying to keep our ground here. People obviously have street parking here in Hollywood Beach, and they've sought refuge for their vehicles in here. So this parking garage is completely full. People have been parking in spots that aren't really spots here, just trying to find a place for their car. But these wind gusts really picking up here, and every single hour we've been here on Hollywood Beach, these wind gusts have gotten worse and worse, and it's every 20, maybe 30 minutes or so, we see that rain accompany with it. For now, it's a mix of a little bit of both. For now, we're in Hollywood Beach. I'm Chris Van Vliet. We're going to send it back to you guys.
It's a lot of what they're seeing in the Keys right now, especially the lower Keys in Key West, which is why officials this morning have urged everyone to stay put. They are advising people through this tweet. Everyone in the Florida Keys are saying don't go outside. Shelter in place, hunker down, get to an interior room away from windows.
And now we have an opportunity to check in with Miami Herald reporter David Ovaya. He's actually in Key West right now. And David, I hope you're in a safe place. Where are you located right now?
Good morning. Well, we are located in an old concrete building that's 3 stories. It's built like a rock, so hopefully we should withstand the storm okay, but it's the worst has yet to come. I mean, really, it's pretty mild outside right now. Of course, there's howling winds and rain, but the worst is headed our way in a very short time.
And David, since you've been there for the long haul, talk about the changes that you've seen in the weather. Would you say that they've gotten progressively worse as they're coming in squalls, or has it pretty much maintained this same level of intensity?
No, it's only gone in and out. You know, it'll be quiet for a little bit, then the band will come through and the winds will just be howling. You know, of course, it's the middle of the night right now. We only have one small window we can see out of it, so it's not, as of right now, there's no flooding, there's no storm. What we can see where we are, that doesn't mean it's not affecting other parts of Key West. But of course, the winds were bad enough that the power went out around 8 p.m. last night. So we're, you know, we're in the dark. We've all got flashlights and there's some emergency lighting here. But other than that, we're hanging in there, and it's just a matter of waiting out.
David, we have a piece of video that I think you shot with your cell phone. It's something flapping. Can you tell me what this is?
Oh yes, it's sort of like a stutter/awning at the books and books here, the gallery where we're holding, where we're writing it out. And one of the awning is the metal got loose in the wind, so it's flapping around a lot. So they actually boarded up, guys here boarded up one of the door between the main lobby of the gallery and the bookstore, just in case that class happens to break the windows. Here's the thing, we're fully anticipating all the windows to go out at some point. You know, they're all going to break because this storm is just too powerful. So when that happens, we're all going to retreat inside, and if it gets really, really bad, we'll be in the stairwell. So it'll be about 10 or 12 of us, plus about 6 or 7 dogs.
All right, David, and you're part of the reason, as you're describing there, that officials with the National Weather Service in Key West issued this statement, and this one directed at you. Hunker down in an interior room away from windows. Make sure you have proper footwear on. Of course, referring to the possible broken glass that you may be experiencing shortly. We want people to know to use whatever they have to try to protect themselves while they shelter. Mattresses, they're talking about blankets, pillows, helmets, whatever. The worst is yet to come. It goes on to say the intense winds associated with the eyewall are expected to arrive around 7 a.m. in the lower Keys. As we're showing our viewers right now, if you're listening on a simulcast there in the Florida Keys, and you may have lost power with so many others in Miami-Dade and Broward counties, talk about that, because a lot of people you have shuttered up their homes, but for so many of these homes in Key West, like the one you're in, the windows are the only protection they have right now from those howling winds, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there's shutters up, and you know, I think one of the main things here is going to be storm surge, because you know Key West is such a low-lying area that if you're not on the second or third floor, you could very well get swamped. So we are going to be on the third floor, and if it gets really bad, we're just going to hang out up here. But you know, we're very concerned for some of the people in these old little cottages here in Key West. Some of the homeless people who are riding it out in just in wherever they can find refuge in some of the public housing here. Those are the ones that are going to be most vulnerable. So I think a lot of people really got the message in the last couple of days. And so, I mean, just yesterday, the Key West High shelter was opened up, and there was just hundreds of people there, a cross-section of people here living in Key West and Stock Island and some of the surrounding areas. So I think at this point, everyone's just calmed down. It's kind of like just waiting for it to be over, but really just waiting for it to start.
I sure hope so, David, and I'm happy to hear that you have a plan, at least if you do get the worst case scenario and if your windows do blow out. I'm happy that you at least have a plan, and that's key, because that's what's important at this point if you are stuck there already. David, look, this is you are really our only you are our first opportunity to get an idea of what it's like, because here in South Florida, as you know, everyone is experiencing those bans. So we're getting that severe weather in bands, so in and out. And you, though, you're getting it consistently, right? You're at the point that it's nonstop at this point, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it's definitely nonstop. You can't even go outside for a second. Yeah. I mean, it still kind of goes in and out a little bit. They'll pick up, and they'll die down a little. They'll pick up, and the rain will start again. So, but yeah, it's definitely, we're a little farther west, so it may take a little bit longer to get to us. But since it's heading west, we're going to get clobbered. We're going to get clobbered in about 2 hours. So, hopefully, just pray for us. Make sure everyone here, is in your thoughts, and we'll ride this out just fine, and we'll be here to tell the story afterward.
Thank you so much for your time, David. Of course, you are in our thoughts and prayers, and everyone in the lower Keys and Key West, of course, and that is why we're all here to make sure to get that information to those residents who may be listening to us and our simulcast partners who have lost power, to stay put and to give everyone an idea that at 7 o'clock is when the worst is set to happen. So that is the time that you need to do anything you can to keep yourself safe within your home.
Yeah, that is the time. 7 o'clock is the time estimated for the landfall in Key West. We were just talking about the bands. Here in South Florida, we're feeling those strong winds more and more as the day goes by. But those bands we're still getting it, in and out. Lorena Estrada is now in Coconut Grove. What's it like there? Are we in one of those bands right now?
Oh, Alex, we are. It is definitely, I'm sorry, let me take my FB, I'll put it back in so I can communicate with you better. But we are absolutely seeing the worst of it now. I saw that Miami-Dade Police, the director, Juan Perez, had tweeted out saying that, telling everyone basically to hunker down, because from this point forward, we're going to be seeing the worst of it. And he says you're going to be hearing a lot of strange noises, loud noises outside of your home. Do not venture out. Those noises we have been hearing out here, and it's pretty scary. We've seen several transformers blow out. The lights are on now, but they've been on and off And of course, whenever we get that big gust of wind, they go off. So we've seen several what looked like lightning. At first I thought it was lightning, but it wasn't. They were transformers that were blowing out. And then after a few minutes, the lights would come back on, but it was pretty incredible. I mean, what's scary is that it is dark out here. So you hear this howling noise above the boats because we are at Dinner Key Marina here in Coconut Grove, and that is a scary part. So let me just go ahead now while I have a moment to show you behind me, right? Coconut Grove, known for all of its beautiful trees. Just check out these trees. There's if I can show you this tree carpet, we can point to the one to the left. The left of us here, well, there's a stop sign there. It'll fall over any minute now, so we're trying to be careful so we don't get hit by any debris, because that is certainly something you don't want to get hit by. And then if we could turn this way, you'll see this tree right here. Any minute now, we've been looking at it, and it's just almost knocked over. You know, standing out here, we don't have many buildings surrounding us, so we took cover behind the live truck so to help stop some of the wind, because I wouldn't say it is pouring, but man, you just get smacked in the face with the wind and with all of the rain. Earlier, when I spoke to you all this morning, the boats were rocking back and forth. Boat owners who left their boats here, they certainly made sure to tie down those boats really well. They removed everything off of the boats, but debris is absolutely something you want to keep an eye on. We don't want to let our guard down. And now if we can go and walk towards the boat area, of course, we're also keeping an eye on the water levels, because we are at a marina here. We are expecting a lot of rain, and the storm surge is something we're keeping an eye out on. And Carper, we can just go ahead and show them some of the boats. Right now, you know, they are keeping calm, because again, Alex, you were talking about the outer bands. Right now, it has calmed down a bit. Believe it or not, this is calm. Moments ago, probably about 7 minutes ago, we could not get out. It was way too dangerous to get out, and right now we're feeling that wind. Okay, we're feeling the wind pick up again, and you can just see the rain smacking on my face, and you know, it's kind of hard to stand still. Of course, whenever we feel it's not safe enough, we will take cover. But just this is what's happening now. We feel this strong gust of wind, and our truck operators here, photographers here, of course, we're trying to report the safest we can. But here we're at right outside of Pier 6. Any boat owners that are possibly watching us, so far these boats look like they were tied down pretty well, but they're rocking. You know, don't get it, you know, it's dark out. So what we see is that they're slightly rocking, but we won't know until the morning the damage that we're seeing here. You know, we can only show you. I know we have to clean the lens every now and then to make sure that we give you a clear view of what's happening, but that's probably usually the scariest whenever it does storm, especially at night. This is only the beginning. Authorities reminding everyone the worst is yet to come, and it is now getting started, though. I've been here for 2 to 3 hours now here in Coconut Grove, and this is the worst of it now. Alex, I'm going to go ahead, Diana, put my IFB back in so I can hear you. I'm sending it back to you.
All right, Lorena Estrada reporting for us out of Miami's Coconut Grove neighborhood there, and that is some of the worst that we've seen her experience.
Models says this continues to fall on the pressure fields throughout the course of the day, and the winds continue to increase. So what my biggest issue is now is that, you know, there's, you know, 155, 165, 170. So I've got a very high winds now, and in a very localized area. We're not talking about the whole hurricane. We're talking about an area, you know, roughly, you know, about a 10 mile by 10 mile area. This little corridor here, these extremely destructive winds, 140 to 165 to the northeast of eyewall. These numbers continue to increase, meaning the winds are got some pixels while it goes just 100, 180. Again, it's not surface, that's at 2,000 feet, but my point is, as the pressures continue to fall, the winds are continuing to rapidly increase in this eyewall. Right now, it's forecast to stay Cat 4. Hurricane Hunter's been out there. I still think there was a possibility we may end up with a Cat 5, a very high 4, or a Cat 5 after it passes the Keys. I think it'll be a 4 when it goes over the Keys, but as it makes its track on up to the northeast here, especially the southwest coast, we've got a lot of time here, about probably 10, 12 hours at least. Based on its current speed now is 8, it'll probably pick up to 10 miles an hour, maybe 12 miles an hour. By as we get in the afternoon, it'll pick up its speed faster and faster as it moves northwest here. So it's going to be over water roughly another 12, 15 hours, and through the late afternoon, early evening, as it tracks on up to Fort Myers. My point is that this hurricane, major Cat 4, continues to track in this general direction like this, and it's to the right, immediately to the east of the eyewall. That 10 miles east of the eyewall is going to be very destructive winds. In that area right now, best guess is it's coming up toward Marco Island. It's going to go up toward Naples. This whole area, Marco Island, Baxter Springs, all the Cape Coral area, Fort Myers, this whole area along through here, including Sarasota. Wherever you're to the right of this eye, and especially in this inner eye wall here, I've got thunderstorms now with intense lightning starting to form. That tells me the pressure. We got very intense convection now forming on this northeast, east, north, and northwest eye wall. So we got very destructive winds now forming around the eye. It doesn't continue to improve. It's getting more intense hurricane. The pressures are falling. The winds are coming up. We definitely have a strong Cat 4 now. And I keep saying, I think there's a possibility we may have go to Cat 5 this afternoon. This thing is continuing to increase, and I'm very concerned. But anyway, we have very destructive winds now, northeast eye wall. This area right here, winds are 140. They actually show got some areas of 170. And again, but that's just above the surface at about 2,000 feet roughly. So 165, 170, 168, 150, and this whole area of black here is like 150 to 160. So that's extremely destructive winds. The other thing I'm going to show you when we talk about Miami here in a minute is we've got hurricane force winds extend all the way up to the blue now, which is up to the northeast here. This is all hurricane force winds coming here, coming up to the north here, northwest, as we head up to Marco Island and the areas of the southwest coast. The other areas, go to the Miami radar. They've had numerous tornado winds all night there, as we talked about last night when we signed off. The other thing that's a concern is that you've got the eye wall here, but down south here, but all in the Homestead area as well as Miami. I've seen some live feeds out of Miami Beach this morning. The winds are gusting very strong there, but there's a big area off the AMX radar here in Miami. Winds again, got almost hurricane force winds coming ashore just south of the downtown Miami, just east of Homestead. But this whole area back to the south here, this is all 74 plus mile-an-hour winds. And actually, as we get on south here, you've got winds of 100, 105, 109, 108. But all those winds are going to be rotating to the northwest here, coming up toward Homestead, coming into possibly downtown Miami. But you've got very destructive winds, damaging winds will be coming ashore later this morning, mid-morning. And this area is not that far away from the coast now. So let's do this little quick deal. Anywhere from 40 to 50 miles southeast of Miami, the winds are now up in the 70. We've got winds 100, 110. And again, this is going to be shooting up about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. So you got to deduct a little bit of that off there. But what I'm getting at is that you've got a very high winds now, way over hurricane force, well over 100, matter of fact, that is developing this area right in here. This area right here of 100, 110 mile-an-hour winds are going to be rotating back to the northwest here. And you're going to have probably winds start gusting over hurricane force, and then as well up to 90s, and then eventually you'll have maybe some 100 mile-an-hour wind gusts coming in south of Miami, Kendall, Homestead area, this area. As this rotates northwest, very high winds are going to be coming on shore, damaging winds are going to be coming on shore in the next 2 to 4 hours in that area. So we've got two concerns. We've got spiraling bands also to the north. Miami still have key tornado warnings occasionally popping up here. And if we loop the radar, you can see that we're still getting storms with occasionally rotation in them. This area, look at the red and greens next to each other. And of course, radars are going through different scans there. But you can see there's couplets up here north of Boca Raton, Daytona Beach area. These are all rotating storms with possibly tornadoes coming on shore. This area is going to have watch for tornadoes. Fort Lauderdale, this area here, be on high guard. You're going to have rotating storms and tornadic storms coming on shore most of the day today. But damaging winds are not that far south of Miami now, and that area continues to get worse throughout the day. The other area that we've already recapped is the eye. And let's go back and look at the eye again. And I can tell you that the eye is not moving just northwest. It's doing kind of a stair-step approach. Let's go back to Key West radar here. And you can see continue to have a lot of new convection. Now, what's happening is, if I back this up over the last 2 hours, there's multiple things that the radar is telling us here. Initially, the eye is kind of open on this. I say open. The convection is not really intense on the south eye wall here, and you see we've got a little bit of a break here. But what's happening is this eye is getting smaller and smaller now. We find the pressures are falling overnight, and it'll take 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes for the winds to pick up to what the pressure is, in the sense of it winding back up again. It's not instantaneous. Just because it falls 4, 5, or 10 millibars doesn't mean 5 minutes later we have winds instantly responding to the pressure field. It'll take time, and that's now happening. So as that happens, and the eye wall's getting smaller, it's getting more intense. But what's more of interest to me is how we have, which is expected, you've got this area that's 50-55 dBz around here, around this, like this now. This is going to be the extremely destructive eye wall, both on the northwest wall, north wall, northeast wall. So wherever this crosses the Keys, it looks like it's going to be very close to Key West. It's going to definitely be in the western eye wall, northwestern eye wall. And then as you get over here to Big Pine, that's where Jim Eds is. Last report, we just got a text from him a few minutes ago. He says the winds are screaming at Big Pine. He says the conditions there are horrendous, is the word he used. And they'll have daylight here soon, within about an hour before the eye hits them. So there's a good possibility Jim Eds may be in the eye wall here in about an hour, a couple hours, maybe about 7, 8 o'clock, as this thing continues to track up to the northwest here. And we've even seen some jogs actually to the northeast, but it's kind of just doing this stair step like this is what's happening. And we'll see how this transpires. But the eye wall is very destructive now, very intense, high category 4, and the winds are continuing to improve and get very high on this eye right now this morning. We're in Naples. I'm going to take you outside in just a second, show you what's going on outside my door, because the wind's starting to howl here as well. But again, winds 150, 160 off in this eastern eye wall, and maybe even gust up to 170. Just again, this is about 2,000 feet above the ground, not far, and you get that convective storms, those thunderstorms forming here. And what you do is when you have winds 160, 170, you get a thunderstorm there. That heavy rain, that storm will force that wind to the ground. So it wouldn't be surprised if we have winds exceeding 150 on the Keys as this, and it's going to be very localized. It's not the whole area. It's going to be very localized. It's going to be in this area right here. It's going to be very destructive winds coming across the Keys, and then it'll also make its way up to Naples in this area this afternoon. Let's go outside here. Look what's going on out here on my balcony. Got the TV guys going here, and let's see. This is a Cat 5 hurricane door, winds of 180. It's a super big vault door. It's like 5 inches thick. And I'll go out the back here real quick, and you can see what's going on. It's actually, I'm in between feeder bands right now. Winds are probably 40, 45. We've had some gusts earlier. Here's the marina this morning. The boats are bobbing. The water hasn't come up yet here. I'm sure it will increase rapidly this afternoon. The boats are just bobbing a little bit, the normal stuff. The water, the bay here is, you can see it's starting to ripple a little bit, but so far not really bad. Just about 40, 35 mile an hour winds. Every time we have a band come through, obviously the winds pick up. I can tell you above, it's going to be hard. You can't see it at night, but the winds are just racing out of the northeast here above the ground. They're rocking back southwest around the eye wall. But conditions will rapidly go downhill now all across southeast coast, the southwest coast, from Miami, all in Fort Lauderdale, all the way over to Naples and Fort Myers. As we get into midday and on into 7 p.m., we're going to take the full brunt of a high Cat 4 hurricane. I think we're going to have winds possibly gusting to 150. Actually, the official forecast track is winds of 130 sustained, gusting to 160 miles an hour. I think we're going to be easily that. But as the trough grabs it this afternoon, it's going to start getting in shear as it passes Naples, and the pressures will slowly come up as it makes landfall up to our north here. But right now, we're at Naples, and we think we're going to absolutely get hammered here in the northeast eye wall sometime after lunch, probably in the 1 to 3, 4 o'clock time frame, and that's what we're going to be. We're going to stay here in Naples. We think we're in about a place, but I'm in a Cat 5 rated hotel here. So we're fine. We're up in a parking garage, so we're going to be out of the storm surge when it makes landfall here. The storm surges are going 10 to 15 feet, maybe 10 feet here in Naples, 10 to 15, maybe higher down at Marco Island. Could be even higher. That's where I expect the extreme destructive storm surge is Marco Island and that area, and also Everglades City. But that's what's going on outside. Again, this is like, I don't know if you can see this. You probably can't. This door here is like 5 inches thick. It's like open a vault door. Is the only way to describe it. Let me see if I can get this light on here for you. Let me see if, yeah, there we go. But look at this door here. This door's like, you know what? I said 4 inches thick. This door's 8 inches thick. It's an 8-inch thick steel door. When I close this door, it's literally like closing like a vault door. It's this thing is like 1 inch thick glass. It's got looks like I've got 4 layers of glass here in this thing. So it's rated to Category 5, 180 mile-an-hour winds on all the doors here and the windows in this building. So we do expect to take some water on in this building potentially. They said we could have water anywhere from 1 foot to 5 feet deep in this building in the first floor. There's nobody downstairs in the first floor. I'm on the second floor, so we'll expect. We'll see what happens. It all depends on where the eye goes. If it goes just over us, this bigger storm surge might be just barely east of me. But we're going to have a catastrophic storm surge into Naples, Everglades City, and then also on east from there. We'll go back over here to where the radar is, and let's watch this loop one more time here and just kind of give an eye. But you can see the very constructive eye wall. It's approaching the Keys now from the southeast. Continues to jog to the northwest there, northwest as it continues to approach Key West. Will be one of the first areas it crosses. Pine Key over to Key West. It seems like the area where the eye. And as you watch this, the concern again, this is changing by the minute now. This is going to be continuously changing by the minute. Is what's happening is you watch this eye now. Look how I'm getting 50 dBZs. Look what's happened just in the last, since I started my Periscope. Just watch this, because a while ago it wasn't that high, and now look what's happened with this eye wall. Okay, this is now look at all this wide area. This 50, 55. This continues to close off. This is if this 50 is continuing to close off, and we get a solid 50, 55 round. I think there's a chance it may try to get up to low Cat 5. But right now, I can tell you the winds are definitely in the high 4 range, Cat 4 range, especially in this northeast eye wall. And the winds are, very high, 150. They're, 150, 155, 158, 160. So basically, this area right here, we're still having very high winds, very destructive winds, and it's actually the whole area. I mean, this whole area is 130, 125. So you have, high Cat 4 winds. Obviously, are getting ready to approach to hit the Keys here, probably around 7, 8 o'clock time frame as the eye's jogging up that direction. So we'll watch it. But right now, we've got a high Cat 4 hurricane approaching the lower Keys, Key West, and it's in my opinion, the structure, the eye wall, the rotating bands, the wind fields are continuing to improve, which means it continues to intensify, and the pressures continue to fall this morning. The last hurricane pass from the hurricane hunters, and then the last about an hour and a half ago or so, the pressures continue to fall in this. And as long as the pressures are falling and the winds are continuing to pick up, that means that we're going to have a strong, very destructive Cat 4 going across the Keys, and then it'll make its way up toward the southwest coast here, where we've got up here at Naples area, Cape Coral, all the way down here to Marco Island. And then you've got Everglades City down here to the southeast of Marco Island. This area will be under the gun this afternoon, and it'll only get worse by mid-morning. This whole area here will start having way over hurricane force winds, gusting maybe up to 150, 160 miles an hour. So things will deteriorate rapidly. So this morning, that's the only Periscope update I'm going to do for right now. I've got to get ready. I've got to go into hurricane mode really quick here. Since I've got to get packed, I've got to get things ready, cameras ready, get ready to get out and start filming outside. And we'll bring back the Periscope. It'll probably be after 8 a.m. We need to get the light outside so you can actually see what's going on. So give us about 3 hours or 2.5 hours, and we'll bring Periscope back up probably around 8 a.m. We're holding about 2 bars of service here across Naples right now. So the cell service, because of the rain, the amount of people now waking up and getting on the internet and their phones and stuff, I'm getting a degradation of the data now. So we'll see if we have enough bandwidth to bring you what we're seeing here at first light here in Naples.
Because of the fact that they want them to kind of sway in the wind. However, when you come outside and you see something like that, you know instantly just how strong these winds really are. And so for folks here in the Midtown Miami area, I want to give you a look at how the hurricane impact windows are kind of working. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, you really can't hear anything inside. You don't know what's going on because that glass is pretty thick and pretty strong. But the second that you come outside, you realize just how strong these winds are and just how much damage they can really produce. So it's a sticky situation out here, and folks not advised again to come outside anytime soon, because not only do you have debris flying at you, you also have that concern of water coming onto the land. And so again, we are live this morning here in Midtown, and I just want to show you and talk to you a little bit about how those wind gusts are really impacting this area and taking down trees again, and power lines, and these little light posts are swaying in the wind this morning, as you can tell. So really dangerous situation out here, but we are kind of positioned ourselves to be behind a concrete wall that is kind of covering us and giving us this vantage point. And also the wind's so loud, excuse my voice, I've been trying to talk over this wind this morning and yesterday, and I'm kind of losing it at this point. But you can imagine, I'm gonna lower my voice, I guess, after this, but you can imagine just how strong these winds are. Just taking a look at this, hearing the wind out here, and seeing how much water is coming onto shore. Very dangerous, as things are just flying around that aren't tied down. And folks that live in these communities that we're talking about, all those debris piles that were left around, this is where that comes into play, where that debris turns into flying projectiles. And that is why so many people were concerned about those debris piles that are just sitting out in their neighborhood, because that stuff is getting picked up, as we see, just flying right by us at this point. So we're gonna toss it back to you ladies into the studio.
All right, Omar, and again, I can tell you as I started to that out in the highways, there is no one out there right now, and there is good reason for that because of those conditions out there. If you were to get in trouble, there is no one to come find you because, of course, those first responders are not going out in conditions at 40 miles per hour or more, and we're seeing gusts of that all throughout our area.
That's right, all throughout. That was Miami, and now we have an opportunity to check in with Jessica Holly in Miami Shores, and similar conditions there, although it seems like it's raining there, unlike where Omar was. Jessica?
Right, when we first pulled up just a few minutes ago, it was pretty calm, and then another gust came through with wind and rain. It is picking up right now. Every now and then you get a gust that almost knocks you off your feet. We were here yesterday. This is the Miami Shores area, just toward the end of Northeast 96th Street, where it meets the bay. We had to park our news unit here in an alleyway because if you look over here, the streets are starting to flood. This is a mandatory evacuation zone, so there aren't many people, according to neighbors, left in this neighborhood. And here's why. This area, there was a huge concern about the storm surge. We were hearing 3 to 5 feet. Well, we see that the water is already coming up. Police have warned us not to go too close to the seawall, but we're going to take you down there just so you can see the waves crashing over the seawall. If you look on either side, it appears the people who have stayed have managed to park their cars up in driveways because they know that there's potential for street flooding. As we get closer to this seawall, it's hard to tell if it's actually raining or if this is the spray coming off of the seawall. We're going to try to get close enough so you can see those waves crashing off of it. Yesterday when we were here, the waves were crashing and the area next to it was starting to retain water, but it would drain and then calm down a little bit, and then it would come back. This is not draining. And we heard just a few minutes ago, all right, we're going to stop here. The wind is just too strong to keep going. But we did, we heard we are not going to the seawall. We're not going to the seawall. Police told us not to go to the seawall because there is a danger there. When those waves are crashing over the edge, it almost looks like it has the potential to pull you back in. And the fence over there has spaces that are about 1.5 feet tall. You can see some branches are down. Yesterday there were a lot of people out here looking around, taking pictures. Obviously picture time is over. We're getting another really strong gust out here. What's amazing to me is that this neighborhood, you look around here, you see the lights. People have power. I don't live far from here, just a few blocks away, and we lost power around 9 o'clock last night. And then it came back on around midnight, and it may have been the same case for this area. I can tell you, driving around this area in Miami Shores, there's debris all over the roadways. We're talking about palm fronds. Yesterday we saw one power line down. Didn't pass that way today, so I don't know if that's been taken care of. But it is not safe to be out in the street. Not just the wind, the rain, the debris in the road, the possibility of downed power lines. It's something else to consider. Not only should you not go out right now, but many of the injuries that happen in storms happen after the storm. When you're told not to go out because there are dangerous things that you may not be aware of. The water is not safe, often after a storm if there's flood water. And again, those downed power lines, often you cannot see those. So you're encouraged. We have seen some people walking down the street, not in this area, but on the way here. If you are curious, do not go outside. I know Lorena referenced that tweet from the Miami-Dade police director. He says you're going to hear some weird noises outside. Do not go outside to investigate. And I can tell you last night, as I was trying to catch a few hours of sleep, there were all kinds of noises. And if you have hurricane shutters on your home, or if you live next to someone who does, you probably heard those shutters just rattling back and forth every time one of these gusts came through. All right, right now we're gonna have to kind of brace ourselves because this is strong. This is much, much stronger than what we saw yesterday. You know, you have to think about it. We were told that in the beginning, we were thinking this storm was gonna hit us directly. This is nowhere near a direct hit, and the storm hasn't even made it here yet completely. And it's hard to imagine what we would be seeing right now if that actually happened, if that storm had headed straight for Miami. Of course, everybody is thinking about the folks in the Keys right now. Can't imagine the scene there, guys.
And Jessica, we're going to give you a little break there to catch your breath. And as we keep you there in the shot and try to catch your balance there, that is part of what we're experiencing all across South Florida. Those gusts, those squalls that move through, and that is some of the strongest that we've seen as we approach the 7 o'clock hour, which she was referring to. She and Lorena are out in those elements along with our other crews, and there was a tweet sent out by Miami-Dade PD, and it says that hunker down in place is the thing to do. Going to be a long ride from this point forward, and you'll hear a lot of noises. That's what she's talking about. Don't get curious and try to head outside, especially right now, because what you're hearing are breaking limbs, downed power lines, and a lot of debris flying around out there.
So that right there is a great example of what storm surge is. Jessica was in the middle of some flooded areas, right? So, and she was mentioning the seawall. So what storm surge is it's that water from the bay, that ocean water coming onto the streets of a neighborhood, and then it levels out, and that's flooding in itself. Add on top of that the rain that will continue to be pouring on South Florida throughout possibly Tuesday, if not the end of tomorrow. So you have the storm surge, you have the rain. We're talking about severe flooding. Not only the winds that you have seen and you have felt and you have heard, but add on top of that the flooding and the rain. This is what we are going to experience for the rest of the day today. It is Sunday at 5:44 in the morning, and those are the conditions so far. Expect this for the rest of the day. This is a day, like Diana said, stay in, do not be on the streets. Hunker down. You've heard the tweets, you've seen the tweets, and you've heard the officials tell you hunker down. This is the time to do so.
And you know, if you're wondering, well, how long is this going to last? At what point can I go out? We had heard from the National Weather Service earlier, and they're talking about the extreme conditions expected in the next few hours. When I asked him, he said late into the afternoon and evening may be the first that you could possibly venture out and be safe, because at that point they believe that those extreme conditions will have passed. So I want to show you a tweet that they sent out a short time ago here.
Yeah, we showed this to you before, but this is the time that this is important to just let it resonate in your mind. If you are in Key West, if you're in the lower Keys, officials are warning you to not go outside, shelter in place, hunker down. If you're there, get into an interior room away from any windows. Put your shoes on. And we did have a chance to listen and talk to a Miami Herald reporter, David Ovalle. He's in the Keys. He's in Key West right now, and he told you, he described the conditions there, and he and his group there from the Miami Herald, they have a plan in place to do just that, to do what is on your screen right now, to hunker down, stay safe, and have something to protect yourself if, in fact, you are still there in Key West.
And those lower Keys folks in our thoughts, as well as those on the West Coast in the Fort Myers area. 7's Nicole Insalata had a chance to visit a shelter there in Estero.
You have a wristband, sir?
A place to weather the storm just a few feet away.
It's been quite exciting.
The Howingtons and their dogs tried to get into 3 shelters, finally ending up here at the Germain Arena off I-75. Additional evacuation orders meant additional people, their children, their pets, trying to escape Irma. Connie Taylor is disabled and was afraid to stay home.
I'm just scared for the kids, that's why. I want to make sure they're safe.
Her daughter trying to reassure 6-year-old Rylan.
He just knows it's a really bad thunderstorm and there's a lot of wind and that a lot of houses could be damaged, and he knows that. But he knows when nothing's going to happen to him, right?
There is confusion.
I checked in. I'm trying to find my car.
There is calm.
Where I'm from, Cuba, we have constantly lived through stuff like flooding. What worries me more is the power lines.
And at night, people continue to show up. Inside, an evacuee's video shows families trying to relax, stretched out on the arena's floor, bracing themselves for Irma. Nicole Insalata, 7 News.
All right, so that is the latest out of Southwest Miami-Dade. As you take a look at Southwest Florida, Estero near Fort Myers. They are expecting to experience those very high hurricane force winds. They're expecting a landfall in that area, actually. So you can imagine the fear, the stress, the anxiety they're feeling, similar to what we all have been feeling all week long. Right now, it's 5:47, almost 6 a.m. on this Sunday morning. And it's important to know this is the day that we're going to experience all the weather, all the severe weather, all those strong winds, all the flooding, all the rain.
All right, and of course, we've been talking about those that are going to be the most affected right now in the lower Keys and on the west coast of Florida. If we have an opportunity, we want to bring you a picture of what it looks like right now. We're working on that one. In the meantime, this is Key Largo. I can tell you that we've had an opportunity to speak to a couple folks in that area. They're talking about the conditions there, the worst that they've seen as we approach the 6 o'clock hour. In the next hour or so, according to officials with the National Weather Center, is when they will experience the most extreme conditions. They talked about violent hurricane force wind gusts that reach already in that area up to 90 miles an hour, driving rain, that storm surge that we've been talking about, and of course to stay indoors. Do not attempt to look out, get near a window if you didn't board up or shutter up. And so many of you that have lost power listening to us on the radio right now and those simulcast partners, and it's been so helpful as we've been getting messages via social media as well, and it's so good to know that you guys are safe right now. Stay with us, and we can tell you that we're trying to get you through the toughest time right now. According to those weather officials, it's at 7 o'clock hours when you're going to be experiencing the worst of it.
And speaking of storm surge, again, Diana, Miami-Dade, if you are in Miami-Dade right now, meteorologists are projecting about 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. In the Keys, you already know, 5 to 10 feet. I think it's important to point out right now, if you're at home listening, like you said, through our radio partners, or if you're watching right now live on 7 News, I think this is a time where you start appreciating all the preparations that you did in this last week, you know. I know that my family's happy that they got that extra food supplies, that they got those shutters, that they got the water, because yeah, we have an idea of when this will stop, but then you don't know really how bad the flooding's going to be when you are finally able to get out of your house and check out the damage. So those preparations, this is why it's so important. You know, it's this time right here that we have been working for. This is the time that we have been anxious for. And, you know, we're right here with you. We're right here with you, and we're not going anywhere. We've been here through the whole time, and we're going to be here guiding you through the entire process as you take these live pictures. Look at these live pictures out of Key Largo, and then the radar on the right side of your screen. This is what you're feeling while you're inside of your home.
And I can tell you, I had the unique perspective to be able to drive through this morning. Getting here, of course, we're covering the news, so otherwise I would never have been on the roadways, and felt it was safe enough at that point, and have been in many storms in the past, so I have familiarity with when it's safe to go out, and did in between those squalls. And I can tell you there was no one else out on the roadways, and for good reason. And 7's Christine Cruz is live to tell us why it is that everyone should stay indoors. Christine?
I'm going to show you exactly why you should be indoors. Here it is. Here's one of the reasons why authorities have been telling everyone stay inside. Our crews obviously are out and about trying to get you the best vantage point of this storm and to show you the damage across South Florida. Right now you're looking at a tree that has come down. This is 82nd Street and Northwest 1st Avenue. A tree is on the road. As we were bringing in this shot, and we actually saw the power go out in this area as well. So you don't need a lot of encouragement here. Obviously, what you need to be doing as you've been looking at these live shots, you've seen people in the Keys, you've seen people very close to home. You just saw Jessica Hawley in Miami Shores. The conditions are bad. We are so blessed that we are not getting that direct hit from that Category 4, Category 5 that was initially anticipated. But do not be lulled into that false sense of security that things are good out there. They are not. I was on the road this morning as well, and the conditions are absolutely awful. That is why those curfews are in place. The lights are out in most places. If you're on any highway, which you should not be, all of those overhead lights are out. Some street lights are out as you encounter the local roads. And once again, just a good example of why you should not be out. That tree in the middle of the road, it's dark. You can't see anything. The only place you should be right now is at home, hunkered down with your family, riding out this storm. Keep in mind, we don't know exactly what kind of damage it's going to cause. And of course, our hearts and our thoughts are with all those people in the Florida Keys right now that are expected to get the brunt of that storm in just about an hour or so when it's expected to make landfall. Live at the news desk, I'm Christine Cruz, 7 News.
And Christine, so many of those neighborhoods there, that is this similar scene that you're seeing all across. Those down trees, palm fronds down all over the residential areas, but even on the highways, you're seeing signs coming across, a lot of debris on there as well. And we want to remind people, if you could, the reason why they need to stay put is because those first responders are not out there if anything should happen to you, even within your home.
And Christine, if you're still there with us, did you experience anything on your way here? Did you see anything? Did you even have power at your home overnight?
Yeah, we're actually very lucky. Did not lose power, have not lost power. The only big issue that I saw driving in, obviously, you know, the rain. We've been seeing them on air all night and into the morning hours. The fact that we get these wind gusts and we get this driving rain at points, they can be called squalls. During a good portion of my ride, it was pretty strong. The rain was pounding. The wind was coming in and out at some points horizontally. You're taking a live look right now out of Miami, and you can see the conditions right now. To give you an exact example of where I was and where I came from, I came into work from the Miami Lakes area. And what I saw coming in was basically, you know, the stuff we've seen. A lot of debris on the road, what you expect to see, the branches, the palm fronds. And then as I hit the highway, I anticipated that the conditions would be easier, but they were not. And the reason why is because the rain was coming down really bad at that point. And actually, when I actually made it into the station, I heard Vivian talking about Miami Lakes is getting hit hard at this point. Well, that's what I experienced coming into work. all the street lights are out, at least where I was. This is 95 north, so the route that I took was 826 east and then taking 95 south. And the best conditions that I encountered, Alex, were actually once I got closer to the station, North Bay Village, and again, I expected the absolute opposite. But the conditions were actually okay here, no flooding, a couple of local street lights were out. But it's just, you know, it's for obvious reasons, guys. We've been talking about it for the last few days. There's absolutely no reason to be out on the road. You know, once you start hearing that emergency personnel is not responding to an emergency, you know that that's the time to stay home. I mean, if you do get into trouble, there really is no one to call. So the only other option would be to call another family member, and then they too would be putting their lives at risk. So again, as you're looking at these live pictures, I-95 North, the conditions that we're experiencing here, yes, consider yourself blessed that South Florida is not getting a direct hit, but do not think by any chance that we are not being impacted. We have seen it throughout the night. We are going to see it throughout the morning. And it's only going to get worse because the system is still 65 miles away from where it's going to make landfall. So just expect the conditions to get worse. And at this point, you know, my advice is the same advice that officials have been giving for the last few days. Stay inside, stay home, and ride the storm out, you know, in the comfort of your home. Worst case scenario right now, you lose power, as a lot of us have. We'll get through that. You know, restoration is going to take a while. FPNL has already said it. That's the least of your concerns right now. The most important thing is stay inside and stay safe. Back to you guys.
And Christine, as I was driving in as well, and you can attest to this, no one on the highways, which is really actually very comforting because of all those conditions that we experienced. And I did the same thing, a 26 to a 36 up 95. There was a billboard near Jackson Memorial Hospital. That area got really beaten up. That is torn up. And the driving winds and rain at some points actually had to stop, if you can believe this, in the middle of a highway, which didn't matter